Hello.
Oh, hello.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Well, welcome to this Friday's show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. And we are privileged to be joined by the creator and owner of Reef Breeders himself, Mr. Logan Brouillette. Good evening. Afternoon.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good evening, Logan.
Now, Dong has talked more about Reef Breeders than any other manufacturer for the last 6 months, it's fair to say. Well, with a little bit of jebao thrown in and fish sauce. So Jamie mentioned it a second ago. Yeah, we thought it'd be a really good idea to get you on and talk to us about the product line, and more importantly for me, or more interesting, should I say, not that the lights aren't interesting, is the story behind it all. Because the story behind it all I find fascinating. I mean, I'm going to just say it. You were lucky enough to go to a school about aquaculture. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah, right? I mean, okay. And I was mostly dealing with for fish that you eat, but
okay.
You know, similar kind of thing. There's schools in Connecticut now too that are you know, they're mostly towards me where I live in Rhode Island on my side of the state here, but they actually have coral farms and stuff like that, and they're using some Reef Breeders lights. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. We will get onto that shortly, but I was just wanting to check that my facts and my notes were correct at the side of it. Because when I read that, and I was just like, really? Like most of us were like learning, you know, arithmetic or algebra or whatever you want to call it back in the day, and you were learning, about fish and corals. Yeah. Certainly got born in the wrong country. Anyway, moving on. Dom, happy Friday. You good?
Yep. Happy Friday,
Jamie. All good.
All good. Dry January is going fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Vodka or gin?
Yeah, just we don't.
Okay.
If I win, you'll know.
The tank is looking really good behind you, mate. I meant to say that to you in the green room. It really looks like it's settling in now. Nice one.
Ah, cool.
You gave it a clean, clearly, for this Friday's show.
I went over the glass for you, just so it looks all right. you can just sort of make out the lovely purple hue over all the rocks, which is my cyano farm at the moment.
Oh, I thought that was Coraline. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, but Logan, honestly, back to you for a second. Thanks ever so much for tuning in and joining us. I know you're a busy man with the business and whatnot. We've got a number of questions, quite a few technical ones that Dong has put together. So we might.
I'm excited for that then.
Okay, might put you in the spotlight a little bit. But before we go into that, let's just say hello to the 40 odd that have joined us this Friday so far. Good evening, John. Hope you're good. Hope you had a good week, my man.
Hey, John.
There you go, Dong, biggest fan. Gazazazaz Reef. Here he is. Lisa is with us as well. Hello, Elisa. Hope you're good. Hope you're having a good week, my dears.
Hi, Lisa.
Texas is in the house. Be good. Neil, I hope you're well. Your prize from Exodus, from the Christmas stream for the quiz, will be getting shipped out to you next week. They have just been catching up on orders, my mate. So that should be with you next week. Congratulations again. Hope you're good. Mr. Parry is in the house. Thanks for joining us, Pete. Hope you're good.
Hi, Pete.
What else we've got in here? Anthony's with us. UK 120. Good afternoon, evening. Immers, here we are. Imran, hope you're good. Hope you've had a good Friday so far. Mr. West is with us as well. Hope you're good. Mr. Timothy Raper, nice to see you in the chat, mate. Reefing Mad, here we are. Marky Mark is with us from Ocean Sea Waves. Critical Reefs, thanks for the message the other day. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. Tez is here as well. Good evening. Happy Friday, Tez. Hope you're good. Matty Boy's in the house. Matt's going to be helping me with some of the marketing, Jamie, for our Reefs Network meetup at AAC at the end of February. So thanks for that, Matt. Hope you have a good weekend, mate. I'll speak to you soon. Liam's here as well. Good evening, Liam. Hope you're good. You still haven't sent your address for the biotic that you won from Exodus. So send us a DM on Instagram. I'll get it shipped out to you if you want it. Other than that, we'll give it to somebody else. Chris is here. Owns Reef. Hope you're good. Hi, Chris. Jackson6745. Hope you're good. James is with us as well. Happy Friday. Derek Hebbs is with us. Thanks for tuning in. Stephen Owen. Nice to see you in here. William Schneider as well.
Howdy.
You've had a good week. Reefy Reese, here we go. A few more coming in. Dave's Reef, here we go. Hello, fam, from the one and all. Corey from Nios and White Corals. Thanks for tuning in. Mrs. Putang is here. Lindsay, hope you're good. Love to you both. Triggerfish is in the house. Spiller's Reef is with us. Hope we're good. Yes, you did win something, send me a DM on Instagram. I'll get it shipped out next week with Neil's Nios set. Who else we got in here? Steve is here as well. Hope you're good. Thanks for tuning in. Harry Bow, nice to see you in the comments. Hope you had a good week, my man. And Joanne Shen 615. Oh, there we go.
Good evening.
Any relations, any familiar names you see there, Logan? Anybody? Any fan base?
Sounds like my wife is watching right now.
Your wife is watching.
Oh, really?
So we're going to have
she's
to
able to tune
really
in.
ask you some probing questions this evening to see if we can catch you out.
You shouldn't have said that, Logan. You should not have said that.
Red rag to a bull. Okay. So like I said at the beginning, we're obviously going to talk about the product range, which is what most people, are familiar with, use, or want to use, because Dong told me earlier he's actually got a waiting list, a second-hand waiting list for your products, which is am I right? Correct me if I'm right.
I believe it.
Meridians. This
Absolutely.
Is Meridians? Okay.
Actually, people ask me if I have a used Meridian. I said, hell no, the line is brand new. So the waiting list is on the photon. Yeah,
I do have to go through. I have a couple of open
Wow.
box. There's always a handful of stuff. Like I find a mark on it or something like that. So I do have some. I got to go through my shelf. I have a shelf. So
now I don't want to embarrass you by asking too much tonight. I will do at some point, I'm sure, by asking your age. But let's go back to the school days, as I said at the start of the show. So back to school. Tell us, how did it start? Yeah, because I've read, I've listened, and I think this little story is fascinating. So please, if you don't mind, from the very beginning.
I mean, I could go back even further than that. I mean, when I was a little kid, it was like the first thing I did was catch frogs and tadpoles, looking puddles, all that sort of stuff. Watching tadpoles turn into frogs. I grew up near the woods, and it was a little stream at the end of the cul-de-sac in the house that I was born in. So I was always going through the woods, stuff like that. My first adventure was, trying to catch a turtle. That was like the biggest thing for me because they're smarter. They're not like fish. You hook them or net them or whatever. I went online and I was looking up. Because of course I grew up in the internet age. I'm like looking up turtle traps, and there's some guy who makes them out of PVC pipes for like $500. But my dad had a bunch of scrap wood in the garage. So I cut up boards of wood, and I'm like, oh, well, these float at least, for like 6 or 7 weeks before they get waterlogged, they'll float. And I attached some old window screen to the bottom, and I stuck some nails out so the turtles couldn't just go off the side. And that was my first, thing was I got a 40 breeder. I put a turtle in there, and it was one that I caught. I kept it for a few weeks, and then I let him go. And then I was like, turtles are great, but how about so actually what happened was my dad got me an aquarium for Christmas. It was I remember this is a 14-gallon BioCube, and I was like, awesome, I'm gonna put like some frogs in there. And he's like, this one's not for frogs, you gotta put tropicals in there. And I was about like 10 or 11 years old. So that was my first experience with the freshwater tropical fish, learning my lessons with the ammonia nitrate cycle, that sort of thing, and keeping the temperature consistent. It's not just throwing a lamp on there and making sure the water doesn't turn into mud and cleaning it out. And then I was kind of like looking around. I realized like people could have reef tanks, and at this point I was just about to be a freshman in high school. So I was fortunate enough, like you mentioned earlier, Tom. There is an aquaculture school in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So basically, I signed up for that program in middle school. And the way that worked was I would do my regular classes in the morning. So English, what else did I have? Like a couple math class, Spanish class, that sort of thing. And then we would do all our science classes. They would bus us over from Shelton to Bridgeport. We would do all our science classes and then get bused back. And I started my first saltwater aquarium during that time. I found a fish tank on the side of the road when I was driving somewhere with my dad in his truck. There was a fish tank on the side of the road, sign that said like $100 on it. And it was like a little 45-gallon undrilled tank, a little wooden stand, some light that was just good enough for like a freshwater system. So we threw that in the back of the truck, bought a heater, a couple other things, and tried my hand at growing corals. that light was atrocious. Didn't work. You know, it was just like a single T8 tube. So of course,
Yeah.
And then basically, I mean, it kept snowballing and snowballing. I would do chores to be able to afford supplements and stuff like that for the tank. The next thing I got into was
you started with plankton, didn't you? So, but you started with plankton.
Yes, that's exactly where I was getting at.
Wow.
So with I started with clownfish and an anemone in the tank. Was basically like that's what I really wanted was, you know, clownfish hosting an anemone, and I wanted to breed the clownfish as well. That was one of the projects I was doing for my aquaculture school. Was you either had to do community service or some sort of science project, and I did do some community service. I did a lot of there was a church in Bridgeport where my dad and I would go on the weekends and basically make a big buffet for the community. So a lot of homeless folks, stuff like that, would come in the morning before service. But I wasn't getting quite enough hours doing that, so my first attempt. I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a tangent, but it'll all come together. My first attempt was breeding betta fish, and very difficult. They make a bubble nest and they try to lay in the nest, but they're very temperamental fish. They can kill each other. The aquarium was a little bit smaller, not so easy. But at the same time, I was getting into saltwater. I got my first pair of clownfish. Was never successful with breeding them, unfortunately, until much later on. I do have like all my clownfish now are babies that we actually raised, but basically I set up all the phytoplankton cultures, rotifers, copepods, and I had so much extra plankton. I was just growing it in the basement with these little work lights. And I started with like a 2-liter bottle, and then I had like a cheese puffs container that was like 1.5 gallons, and then I'm in like a 5-gallon bucket, and I'm just like fertilizing it and going through sterilizing the water, all that stuff. And I have so much of it, I don't know what to do with it. So I started selling it on eBay, and I was able to, like, all my relatives, neighborhood, I would go around and I get empty like Poland Spring water bottles and rip the label off, fill that with plankton. It was like super, super dark green, and then put that in a post office envelope and ship it around the country. I think something around like $8 a bottle, something like that. But it was enough to kind of like start putting a tank together. And that's where the name Reef Breeders came from, as I was supplying all the precursors for marine ornamental fish breeders. In other words, reef fish breeders, right? So that's where the name comes from originally. It was with the phytoplankton, rotifers, and copepods. But the way I got into LED lighting was I started off with that T8 tube. My tank was not doing well, of course. I went to a local fish store, and they kind of pointed me in the right direction. Exotic Fish and Corals over in Milford, Connecticut. Hi, Bob.
And let me guess, you walked out with a metal halide.
Well, they recommended T5.
Is that an American thing? You walk in and walk out with a metal halide. Is that what happens?
I didn't walk out with anything but a little more knowledge that day. But basically, that was the first light I did end up buying, was a metal halide, because I did a bunch of research. I looked up T5s, all that stuff, and I was able to find 2 used metal halide pendants. Little. I think they were like 150 or 250 watts each. These little pendants. I stuck them right on top of the glass top. I actually took a 2x4 and elevated them a little bit, because a little sketchy having it right on the glass. But I was running those metal halides. And then that very summer, our air conditioning went out. I know in Europe, not a lot of you folks use air conditioning. The climate's a little more moderate here, but in New England, the summer, I mean, it could be 100 degrees out. It's kind of oppressive to live without AC, even though you only need it for a few weeks. But it's really good to have.
And halides running in your living room.
Yeah.
God.
But basically, the air conditioning went out, and it's like, whatever. Normally, you could just make do, right? it's a little hot or whatever, but a reef tank, well, you can't just make do. You can't let your tank get to 85 degrees. Your corals will suffer, your fish will suffer. It's just it's not tenable. So I had metal halides, and I had a used aquarium controller that I set up. I ran Ethernet cable through the attic and plugged it into the router and all this stuff. And I was getting like email updates on my phone, and it would tell me as soon as the light hit 80 degrees, it would shut the 80 degrees Fahrenheit, I apologize, would shut the, I don't know what the conversion is. I'm a little off on that, so I do apologize for that, but you get the idea. It was too hot. And the lights would run for maybe 30 minutes, an hour, and then boom, automatic cutoff. So the first thing I do is, well, what can I do that will grow my corals and won't turn my room into a sauna? So I'm looking around. There was only there's a handful of brands out there, the big names. And I couldn't afford that stuff. I was looking at, I spent $150 maybe on this set of metal halide pendants. I got them used off of Reef to Reef or something like that. And yeah, I could not afford that. So I looked at some DIY options. I was actually, at this time, I was pretty active on the forums, Nano Reef, 3 Reef, Reef Central, and Reef to Reef, which I think Reef to Reef is, I think Nano Reef is still going, but there's a lot of forums like that with a decent amount of DIYers in the LED community. Because at the time, there was still that whole debate of whether LEDs could even grow corals or even provide what you need for your coral's health and coloration, that sort of thing. And that argument was kind of fair at the time, because most of the lighting out there, they use 3 spectrums. So you have your cool whites, you have your royal blues, you have your cool blues, and that's pretty much it. Maybe they'll throw 1 or 2 violets in, but it was kind of lacking in the spectrum department. So a lot of DIYers we were experimenting with all kinds of colors, like amber, lime, just throwing stuff in there, see what would happen. But I was doing a lot of research on top of that, reading some scientific papers. A lot of this work was done in the 70s, 80s already, where they're literally just taking coral tissues, running it through a spectrometer, see what it absorbs, see what it reflects. The theory being if it absorbs this light, it's using it.
And that basically came down to. Just remind me what age you're at when this is happening.
14, 15. When I first started selling LED lights, I think around there.
So most people at that age are experimenting with many things, and I'm not going to go into that at that age. You decided to experiment with LED lighting, and I think the first one was called the value light. Is that right?
The value fixture.
Value fixture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It had 2 plugs and 2 knobs on top. And nowadays you call that a black box LED fixture.
Yes.
And even the black box LED fixtures aren't quite that basic anymore. From what I see, they all have little timers, at least from what I've seen poking around on the internet or whatever. But and so I was one of the first
15-year-olds. Your parents must have been saying, what are you doing in that bedroom? With all the
a little bit of that, why are you on your computer so long? I think
I used to get that a lot.
Still does. He still does. Wow.
I have a prediction here for you, Logan. I think we've had these similar conversations recently. I reckon it's going to go retro Game Boy. Everyone wants a retro Game Boy now because they missed the nostalgia of a simple device that just captured you. And I think less is best when it comes to tech on reef tanks. It could be coming back that way.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that, because I actually brought my warehouse is behind me, but I grabbed a couple of things so that I didn't have to run back and forth during the video. But so this is the control knob.
Oh, Logan's got a Logan's
Meridian
desk
manual controller, right? Wow, so you see this is for the white LEDs, this is for the blue LEDs.
Wow.
Kind of like the value fixture. You have 1 knob for the blue LEDs, 1 knob for the white LEDs. But the biggest difference here is this one, with the value fixture, you had 2 channels that are about an equal number of LEDs. With this one, you're truly just turning down the white LEDs or the blues and violets. So it's kind of and this plugs right into the top of the fixture. There's a hole on top of the Wi-Fi controller. It plugs right into the top. There's a little rubber bit here that protects the port. You open that up, and then it just plugs right into the top. And if you don't want to use an app or any sort of programming at all, I mean, you could just plug this light into the, well, I'm kind of reversed here, so apologize. But you could plug this right into the wall, throw it on a timer, and it'll come back on at whatever you put your knobs to. And this even, if you don't even have a timer, you can just plug it in. You push a button on here, you choose 8, 10, or 12 hours. It'll automatically start at the time you initiated the program. It'll do a 1 hour ramp up, level off, and then ramp down for an hour, do a sunrise and sunset. And I'll do even one better. There's another mode built in there. If you switch into that mode, it will even do a moonlight at night. So it'll run your cool blues at 0.1% during the hours that the light is off.
Wow.
And that's all just something that plugs right in. Like I've got some clients that I deal with service companies, that sort of thing as well. And there's always a particular client with certain needs. I remember one gentleman wanted his light set up in such a way that he had like a fish only tank, and he had a smart switch that turned on an outlet. And all he wanted was, he wants his light set at a certain percentage, and he turns on that switch, turns on the power supplies, and the lights come on at that percentage, and that's it. And that's something you could do with a manual controller.
I think that you're the only company that offer them this kind of manual control right now. When everybody is phone app. Yeah. Actually, is that just because of the some of the need of the clients, or is there any other reason that you make it actually into a final product?
I mean, honestly, I got to credit my business partner Liam with that idea. He used to work for Verizon, and I was like, dude, everybody's got a smartphone. I don't want to have to touch a freaking button to program my stuff. And he's like, dude, trust me. And half the people who walk in, because at this like point of service, he's like, at least a quarter of the people he dealt with, they're like, I get rid of the smartphone, I just want a flip phone. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. You gotta have that option. And it's also, it's come up with like customer feedback on like the photons. We took the remote control version and we figured out a way to put an app on there and get app-based programming. And that all we had to do for that was, change the way the light's controlled. Now this requires, custom machining and all. You see there's a hole in the case and all that stuff. So it's quite a bit more involved, but we wanted to make sure that kind of brought that out with the new light. And I'm continually evolving the product. I mean, I've got like a mid-season refresh coming up and stuff like that. I mean, my goal with this product is to be very responsive to customer feedback and continually improving everything.
So going back to what I said a second ago, this absolutely, like, full respect here for somebody you're at that age to decide that's what they want to do. What did you not think about giving up? Because surely it was never plain sailing. Surely it never went right all the way from the start.
I mean,
you've got competitors want to take you down. You've got big organizations with millions of dollars, pounds, whatever you want to call it, with the flashiest gadgets and gizmos out there in marketing, which was a big thing, as I always talk about, that I saw from visiting America last year. So talk to me again a little bit like some of the obstacles maybe that you faced, and how did you get around? How did you get over them?
Yeah, I mean, geez, well, when I started out, with the black box LEDs, that's kind of like everybody, oh, well, I could just go to a factory and buy 10 of them and do it myself. They're totally discounting, like, okay, well, I spent hours and hours developing this layout. I'm taking these lights apart, soldering in different LEDs and trying to figure out like what looks good. Taking par measurements, adjusting to user feedback. When I sold these lights, like the value fixture, I mean, the first thing that I did was I looked at what all those big companies were doing, and they still are for the most part. I see it's starting to change. Like, looks like some of my competitors are trying to offer like longer warranties and stuff like that. But that was always my thing, was I looked at everybody doing like a 12-month warranty. And I was like, why don't I just warranty it for 2 years? Right. And I'm like, I know these lights will last for a super long time. I was just talking to a client earlier today who's like, I want to upgrade. It's been 7 or 8 years. I mean, he's still got a light with like a remote, like they last for a pretty darn long time. So I'm like, yeah, I can do a 2-year warranty. Doug will testify to that.
Yeah.
But that was like, the thing was, I wasn't just selling the lights. Like I learned intimately exactly how they work, how to repair them, how to troubleshoot them. Like what can go wrong with these lights? What do you need to do to keep them running for a long time? What are the important parts that need replacement, and how do you go about doing that? And I'm not just buying something, selling it to you, and goodbye, see you later. You know, it's it's a lot more involved. Customer service isn't just like, oh, you have to replace something now and then. It's like, no, you have to know how something works. You know how to troubleshoot it. And yeah, I mean,
because one of the things I think is important for anybody from the UK watching is that your product is branded in the UK. I'm not sure about other countries in Europe, but we would refer to it as Evergrow lighting. Now, hopefully, now I've just said that word Evergrow. There's people watching it and they're like, I know that name.
Yep.
I've used that product. I've had that light, or I've bought it. I've had it secondhand at some point in their reefing career, and probably may even still do. And I ironically have one in the garage. And yeah, lovely light. Hate the remote. Just going to tell you now. Hate the remote.
So
up,
do
down,
I.
left, round, 1%, 2% up, down. Yeah. It's painful. But as a light, once it's set, it is kind of a set and forget, and I've had some great results with them over the years, and I'm sure there's people in the comments that have experienced, as I've just said, or still experiencing them today. So yeah, Evergrow. For some reason, it's called. Any ideas why we call it Evergrow in the UK? Do you know anything you can tell me on that? Any
Sure.
idea where
I mean, it's at least public knowledge. I mean, that was the manufacturer. I had the U.S. market for those lights, right? Okay. They developed those lights in response to my feedback with the original Photon. So that's how that platform developed. At the time, I was a high school student. I had actually just graduated high school and was going to college. So I was really just concerned with the U.S. market and trying to see how I would make it work after being a full-time student, which, I mean, is how I started. But in high school, I was at least able to leave at like 1:30 in the afternoon after getting up at an ungodly hour to catch the bus. But yeah, so that was basically, so internationally, it was just Evergrow, direct from the manufacturer. Whereas in the US, I had exclusive distribution. And then basically what I did was I also had my own custom layouts. In the US, the layout would be a little bit heavier in the violets and stuff like that. And obviously my warranty and stuff like that. But what I did eventually was I went and had an app developed for the lights. So, those clunky remotes, those were mandatory with the international version, unless you bought the upgrade kit, which I do. I ship those worldwide, so you can actually upgrade these things. But that was the first major change. Was I went out, I figured out how to get an app in this light. I actually contracted with someone who had an app for a similar light, so I was able to kind of white label it and change it to my specifications to get started. So you got to think, low budget, kind of just trying to make an app. Very difficult thing to do. So basically got rid of the remote, moved on to the app, and then the next undertaking was developing my own app. Because after a while, having an app that I didn't fully own kind of became untenable, where it's like, okay, if I want to make a change, I need to contract with like a team that's fully devoted to working on apps. Like that's their career. That's what they do. And I own all those changes, right? So if I don't have full ownership over the app, it's kind of like, well, why am I reinvesting in it? So that was the next big change was, I think around late 2023, early 2024 was we released the REEFBREEDERS app. So that was everything fully under our ownership in that app. No contracting out. Everything is like brand new hardware as well. So that was a big undertaking. I mean, honestly, I would have to say probably the biggest investment I've ever made. It's not cheap to build an app, but the result is rock solid performance. I mean, everything connects. The only issues I've run into are with like the routers, right? You just got to change a setting sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
So what your parents, your friend circle, you're going through school, you're going through college, you clearly had like direction. You were going to make these lights. This was your goal. This was your drive. no matter about the competition, as I've just said, or distribution issues, what was your social circle saying to you? What were your closest friends saying? Were they thinking, you're going to come out and having a beer tonight? Now I'm working on my LEDs. I'm doing this. I've come out with new. They must, surely some of your friends must have said, you're mad. No?
I mean, yeah, I'm that weird fish guy, I guess.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, aren't we all? Yeah.
During college, unfortunately, I wasn't able to have a fish tank. The way it works at our university. So I went to University of Rhode Island. It's right next to this big vacation beach town. So it's all beachfront property. What they do is during the winter, when nobody wants to vacation with their family, they rent it out to college kids. So 9 months out of the year, we get dirt cheap rent. We live right by the beach, but it's winter. So, you get a couple weeks at the beginning of the year, a couple weeks at the end of the year.
Really big parties with the red cups, yeah?
Yeah, and you drink out of the kegs upside down and stuff. Yeah, we've seen it all.
Yeah, we've seen it all.
I'm just thinking American Pie in my head.
Yeah, the kegs are tougher. So Narragansett, it's a bit of a tangent. I mean, URI is kind of like they had a notoriety as being a bit of a party school, and universities don't like that perception, right? So there was this incident. They call it the bottle throwing incident in Narragansett. Some kids they had a few too many. They threw a bottle in the street or something. I don't know if it hit anyone or anything like that, but it caused this big kerfuffle, locally. Everybody's all like, oh my God, these kids, they're all unhinged. And they at the town got together and they put all these laws, stuff like that. Like you're not allowed to park in front of your house from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., like all sort of stuff. So it was funny, like, my college days, I did join a fraternity. I'm the least like fraternity kind of guy, which was, my friends still make fun of me to this day. They're like, oh yeah, you were in a frat, bro. You must be good at beer pong. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. But we would park at the beach. So there's like Scarborough State Beach over there. And I hope I'm not blowing up any current fraternity spots. Sorry, guys. But we would park at the beach and we'd have to have a shuttle system. So, we all had sober drivers, all that sort of stuff. But you would have, we'd park at the beach and then pledges or, sometimes brothers, we weren't too hard on our pledges, would drive around and shuttle people back and forth from the parties. That's how we had to make it work. We had to have a brother sitting out front and like looking for the cops, to draw the curtains. It was a little over the top, but we figured out how to have a good time,
But while you're doing all this and having fun and growing up and maturing or immaturing, whatever you want to call it, as we all do or did, you're still growing this business. You're still messing around with LEDs. Yeah, so you just didn't stop. So at what point did you realize it was a make or break for you? Because I'm sure there was a time where most of your friends would naturally go on and get a full-time job, a career, maybe further education. And you were, I'm going to do these LEDs. So you must have known from the offset that you're a clearly passionate person, but what I'm saying is you must have known that there was no question of failure. It was all about you were going to do it. I
mean, my parents instilled a lot of values in me, and work hard and don't buy frivolous things, honestly. And I live a pretty economical lifestyle. I don't really care about having a new car. I don't need to have the shiniest thing. I mean, really, the thing I like buying the most is tools. I do a lot of DIY stuff, and I worked for many years with my father, like renovating houses, that sort of thing. So he taught me how to fix pretty much everything. One thing I like to do, kind of as a hobby, I actually went and got my contractor's license. Because it's like, on weekends, I do a little side job, and it funds my tool collection. So that's kind of my.
That was a question I was going to ask, Logan. So all of us fish geeks, if you want to call us that, we've all mad into the hobby and about tanks and knee high and all the rest of it, myself included. Are you interested in like electronics and engineering, or because I wouldn't have, as much as my passion is, I wouldn't have the first clue about how to put an electronic unit together.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing. So is that a side hobby of yours that sort of just fit perfectly into your aquarium hobby, or how did that come about?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call myself an engineer. I'm more of like a tinkerer. Like I can take things apart, figure out how they're put together, that sort of thing. basically just not being afraid to break stuff.
Yeah, I can take things apart. I just can't put it back together again.
That's the hard part, right?
Wow.
I mean, my education was, and I went to school for business because I was considering doing like marine biology or something like that to get more into the science side. But yeah, there, like you mentioned earlier, how do I balance that out? And that's kind of what I'm getting to is, between classes and trying to do social things and trying to run a company, it was kind of difficult. I would just find myself in study hall, or I'd go to the library on campus and stuff like that. And instead of studying for the next paper, I'm sitting there, I'm answering emails, I'm taking phone calls, and I'm getting stuff shipped to me in my apartment and taking it apart and putting it back together and doing warranty service and stuff like that. So I kind of just made it work. My parents were really helpful. I mean, I still was running Reef Breeders out of my parents' house at the time. And God bless them. They helped me ship stuff out the door.
In terms of, obviously Dong's a huge advocate of your products. There's been some big names that we've had on the podcast in the last sort of year or so that have also made reference to your products. At what time did you sort of feel a little bit sort of, pinch yourself that this person's using my product? At what point did you sort of realize, not necessarily you've made it, but they're making an impact, a positive impact into the hobby? What can you remember the day or the time or the show maybe you went to? Maybe there was a meet or something?
I'm trying to think. I think for me it was like a lot of that. Like not one big thing, but mostly like a lot of it kind of snowballing, right? So you think about it this way, you mentioned earlier going up against companies that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in advertising, that sort of stuff. I've never spent a penny on like Google ads or any that sort of thing. I've grown, everything is organic. It's word of mouth. Really what puts a smile on my face is when it's like, hey, I heard so-and-so's using your light, like they're my friend. I've seen their tank in person. I want to get some lights for my tank too. And that's really what to me is the most incredible thing. It's like hearing from people all across the country, across the world sometimes as well, where it's like, hey, I saw your lights in action, and how do I get them? And it's kind of like just building it organically. I've never done anything where it's really like I guess sponsored or whatever, or like having all this marketing budget to just like push out a bunch of free stuff and like try and move the marketing needle, capture market share that way. It's just been completely through customer support, and that's really humbling to me because it's like, I haven't and I started Reef Breeders with like $500, and just kind of slowly built it up from there. So
we've got one of the great friend of the shows, Poontang Terrell, has just said his whole facility's been put onto Reef Breeders now. So the proof in the pudding, if a really good commercial seller can do it,
his farm is amazing.
That's got to be great vibes, and what an endorsement that is, that someone like that's using categorically all of your lights for the farm facility.
Absolutely. I mean, shout out to Terrell. He's an awesome dude. I mean, that's what I mean by like organic, is like coral farms like Putang Reefs, starting with a couple of lights, and then growing and adding to their systems, and eventually just replacing all their lights and going with Meridians. And it's just fantastic. It's like, because to me it's like, I don't just want to put a lot of lights out there. It's mostly like, I want people to use these lights because they're just getting amazing results, and their corals are looking amazing. They're growing fast, and they know that we stand behind the product. And if they have any kind of suggestions, like how to make it work better with their system, that sort of thing, like we're very responsive to that. Like that to me is the most important thing.
So what is the plan with distribution then for us in the UK and other people around the world watching?
Well, right now in the UK, you could buy direct, you could buy through retailers. Working right now with we got was the company in the UK that picked us up? I do apologize. I'm not the best with names, but I do have them in front of me. Aquarium Connections.
Yeah, Vince
has
Thomas.
some of the Meridians on hand. I don't know if they're stocking them on their shelves or just using them on their farm. I don't handle a lot of the sales side of that. It's mostly like. But
if people watching this and are intrigued and go online and look and decide they want to give it a go, they can get it. Is the point I'm trying to make? It is accessible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, I ship worldwide. I have the website tallies everything up. Calculates the shipping, any taxes, stuff like that, international. So, and even does currency conversion. So I've done a lot of work in the back end on just like making sure that everything runs smoothly.
Okay. Well, we've talked about them. Sorry, Don. 1 second. I'm just going to let's have a look.
Yes. Well, I apologize. I need to turn off my oven for my pot roast. I'll be right back. Yeah, my daughter is coming home today, so I'm cooking a prime USDA prime beef. Expensive piece of meat. I'll be right back.
Don't ruin that one.
So, Logan, the Meridian tends to be the one I tend to hear about the most. Is that the most up-to-date sort of products then?
Yeah. That's the latest and greatest. I mean, prior to that was the Photons.
Yeah. So they're the Evergrows that I keep referring to, that we would refer to. Yeah, right. Okay. The IT, God help me out. I think it's called IT 2080 or something.
IT 50 something, depends on the
that's it. Yeah, that's the one. Got you. Okay. So this is the latest and greatest then. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So are the Photons sort of being phased out then? You're not making those anymore or selling those anymore?
Yeah, they've been out of production since, I think, end of 2023, I want to say.
Right. Okay.
So those are totally just not made anymore. I do have some back stock. I mean, once the Meridians came out, the Photons that I had left, they were kind of slow to sell, but whatever. I got them on sale if anyone's interested. Yeah.
Cool.
Talk to me about the build of these then. So there's a lot to choose from. You've got some obviously 2-panel, 3-panel, 4-panel, 5-panel panels with side supplement bars. Can you add and connect them all? Are they all interchangeable? Are they only interconnectable? What's the sort of the brainchild on this one then? Where did the Meridian come from?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the overarching theme is, one of the most popular things with the Photons was you had so many different lengths, right? I mean, you could do anything from 16 inches, it's like 40 centimeters up to about 120 centimeters. So unlike a lot of the other lights on the market where you just have like one, maybe two sizes, there's basically, you could get a light that fits the length of your tank, and it's just one and done with one plug. So we actually expanded on that a little bit and went all the way up to 5 feet, 150 centimeters. Don't ask me how much those cost to ship. It's kind of astronomical, but they always make it there in one piece. And that's the important part. Yeah, that thing is a beast.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about, what does that one pull? 375, 400 watts. That's
375 watts. It's 165 centimeters long.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That is a beast of a unit. Crikey.
Well, then, do you know what was sort of I'm looking at here is that obviously the first thing, whenever us reefers are looking for a product, first thing we look at spec, but the first thing we look at on the page is the pound notes, right?
Yes.
And going by what's on the market at the minute, and we all know that top quality lighting carries a top quality price. It's very comparable to what else is out there. It's not a shocking price point, is it, at all? Considering you're sending it from the States as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, we try to keep the prices competitive, but this is definitely not a value product. You can go with, so for example, the Meridian 63, right? Say you have a 6 foot or 180 centimeter, right, aquarium, and you're doing like SPS dominant, you want to light it in one go. In fact, I think Dong, that tank is 6 footer, right?
6 footer.
So you could do like a Meridian 63. If you're doing SPS dominant, I mean, Dong, those corals got to be practically touching the glass. You need a little extra spread. You could go with a bundle where you put the edge bars on the front and back, and you're almost doubling your light's output by doing that, by the way. I mean, our edge bars, the 150 centimeter iteration of those, that's 150 watts if you run at full tilt. Times that by 2, you're adding 300 watts. So you're almost doubling the output. So it's if you scroll down and look at the bundles, those bars actually attached. So there's those mounts down there on the bottom right.
These
the edge articulating mounts.
Okay.
Those slide in a T-track on the front and rear of your Meridian, and a corresponding T-track in the front and rear of your edge bar. And
got you.
They could be tilted up and down and locked into position based on how you want to use them. So for example, in that picture there where they're kind of tilted inwards, that's more for like focusing light throughout your rock work. But if you want to tilt them outwards, you can use it alternatively to expand your coverage. So you could either put a ton more light in the same area, or expand your light out to cover, instead of 60 centimeters front to back, you could cover 80 centimeters front to back. So it adds a lot of versatility there. And then those bars on every size except for the 63, because we don't make a power supply that big. We only have up to 600 watts. I looked into a bigger one. Tough to find. And maybe eventually we'll do an 800 watt or even 1,000 watt. But for now, 600 watts, the most you can do. But those bars right there, they will daisy chain power off of your Meridian.
Wow.
Oh, really?
So up here, you've got 2 plugs. All right, this one is power. This one is power in here.
Yeah.
And then this one, it's got a little cap on it in case you're not using it. This one is power out. So you see there are 2 different plug styles. That way there's no confusing the 2. But basically, you use your power out, and I have a 2-way splitter that is perfectly set up to reach an edge bar on this side, an edge bar on that side. And you could run everything, the whole assembly, off of a single power supply. So I don't know about you, but
that's incredible.
Really, I didn't know that. That's brilliant. That's clever.
So I'm looking at my 6-foot tank here, right? I'm looking at my 6-foot tank here off screen, and I've got 4. Currently got 4 independent lights, top of the range, other supplier lights. Probably people know what they are. Did have 5, so that's 4 plugs at the moment, 4 power bars, all the cables, all that mess. Also, over double the expense of that unit, to put that together. Plus, then the mounting rails, plus the suspension kits, and all the rest of it. Like that's what I mean. In terms of value, this shits all over that. But what's the power output like? Is it comparable to sort of other high-end lights on the market, or is there a compromise anywhere?
Typically better. I mean, we have different optic sets for different applications. So if high power and a deeper tank is your goal, we have a narrow band optic that pushes 45 degrees. The default optics that come with these are 90 degrees, which is ever so slightly wider than it was on the photons. The photons were 80 degrees. And then we have an even wider optic. For example, if you have a shallower tank or you need to go closer to the water due to mounting constraints, we have 110 degree optics. And I brought one of those here as well. So the optics are actually integrated into the panel. So you see they're kind of just attached on the back there. So it's a splash shield and optic all in one. But they're super easy to swap. I mean, there's 4 screws here. And then really the hardest part is just removing screws. And you got some screws on the case here that have to come out. This is the Meridian 11, so there's more screws per inch than other sizes just because it's like a shorter light. But, a handful of screws on the bigger lights, maybe a couple of dozen. And then you got these 4. The panel pops off. You pop the new one on. There's little feet on there too. Let's see. I think by camera we'll show it. Go to the... I'm mirrored. Here we go. Yeah. This one. You see there's a little foot there. And that corresponds with a hole on the LED board. So it lines it up for the proper orientation. Kind of just snap it in. You put those screws back in. Just do it by hand unless you've done a bunch of them like I have with a power drill. Just be careful with that. But
okay.
Can you run the bars on their own? Can they be powered themselves though? If somebody wants to buy them as a separate supplement bar to a current light fixture they've got, they could buy them. Okay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they actually come with a power supply as a default. So the Meridian 63 Edge Bar bundle, that's actually the only one we offer as a bundle that has independent power supplies in the bundle. Right? So there's different ways to order. You could buy just the light. If you just buy the Edge Bar on its own, that comes with the power supply. The bundle's a little different. So like the 45, 35, et cetera, like the smaller ones, I say smaller, but I basically just mean anything 600 watts or less. This bundle is a little over that, right? So you're like 375 plus 300. That's like 675. Our biggest power supply, you could, in theory, do it, but you just wouldn't be able to run everything at 100% power because the wattage, of course, goes down as you dim the lights. So this one would come with independent power supplies.
Wow.
And I apologize if I'm going off a little bit on a tangent. I deal with like a lot of the technical stuff that's more of my area there. But
so the Meridian 11 is obviously one panel, I'm assuming, and then you've got the 24, 35. Okay, got you.
And if you scroll down a little and you look at just the edge bars, so you could buy the edge bars on their own.
Yeah.
Those have two versions, right? Well, there's a bunch of spectrums, first of all. So you've got like the Reefer 14K, which is like a mix of blues, violets, and a couple of white LEDs in there.
Yeah.
There's the manual control version where you just turn the knob and you set a timer, kind of like how I described with the manual controller earlier, except it's just one channel. It's capped at 75% power because that's just for temperature regulation. If you get the wireless version, which is the most popular version, you get two control channels. You can run it at full tilt. And in the app, there's an option. If you prefer your lights to run cooler, you can tell it to cut off and start dimming down when it hits a certain temperature threshold. So that's a feature that's built into the app. You've also got two control channels, which I might have already mentioned, but then you've got the full app programmability. And you can see on that chart right there, channels A and B.
Wow.
Okay.
And we're continually adding like new spectrums and stuff like that. I mean, for the Meridians, we just released what we call the shallow reef spectrum. So that one, basically we doubled the number of white LEDs and we separated the neutral and warm white LEDs onto separate channels. So that way you could go for like a more natural look. If you don't like your tank to be super blue, you can basically get closer to like a 10, 12, 14K kind of a look. And you could also dial in your white LEDs a lot. The warm whites, for example, have more yellow and red tones in them. You could turn those up as opposed to the neutral whites and kind of just change the look of the overall light. Gives you a little bit more of flexibility. And then a lot of people like to pair those up with the high octane, the UV blue hybrid edge bar spectrum. The UV blue hybrid, I think, if you scroll through, it's on that same page, but you could see like it's one of the images in the image gallery. That one is all like 405 nanometer, 440 nanometer, 416, and then some royal blues in there. Those are the lumen bars. It's the old version.
Okay.
At what point did you realize that in your reefing sort of hobby that these lights were working or not working? Because surely you must have had a few, that doesn't work, we'll scrap that and we'll change this and we'll add that. Were you looking at, did you have a reef tank full of corals and you were observing the color or the growth, or how did you sort of figure out they were working? Or was it just more the technology and the science that sort of made you decide that these are good enough to grow corals?
So I've got coral tanks myself. I'm mostly into anemones and clownfish. I mean, that's really my thing. I actually have a tank on order that I'm going to be putting in my home that's not going to have a single anemone in there. I learned my lesson with that. Okay, so I try adding SPS to this tank, and the anemone decides, oh, today I want to move and sit right next to this expensive coral you just bought. And there goes that. I mean, I have uncountable numbers of anemones in this tank. I have a spot that I call anemone jail. I just when they start walking away, I throw them in there. But a lot of it based on the science, based on customer feedback. So I can put these lights out there to some of my customers who have the most advanced acropora, who have all these particular requirements and can give me feedback on what's working for them, what's not working for them. That's been really important. In addition to the science, I mean, I have a spectrometer, right? So I can see what the light is putting out. It basically has, if you saw like that old experiment, I think Sir Isaac Newton did, way back in the day with a triangular prism, and you take sunlight and it splits it into a rainbow. This is the modern version of that. It's a graduated prism where there's like all these tiny little cuts at every fraction of a nanometer, and it takes the light and splits it up and tells me exactly what it's putting out in graphic format. So based on my research, what colors are most important, right? Chlorophyll A, the most prevalent chlorophyll in coral tissues, has its highest absorption peak at 430 nanometers, right? So if you're targeting growth, you want to target the 430 nanometer range. It's the most important.
Okay.
So maybe the meridians. So for the first time in our lineup, like that's the newest addition to the spectrum of the meridians, is we added some 438 nanometer LEDs in there. They're indigo. So they're right between your violets and your royal blues. And they add that very crucial spectrum, which based on customer feedback so far has been key to coral coloration and growth. I mean, just the results have been phenomenal. But how do I verify that, right? I throw that under a spectrometer and I see exactly what the light is putting out and how much of it. So that's a very important step, is seeing the research, building a spectrum based on that. And the spectrum that went to production was not the first spectrum I brought in, by the way. I mean, I started with less indigos. I started with less royal blues. I started with more white LEDs. I threw it on my tank, and I'm like, on paper, right, looks great. I've been building layouts for like 15 plus years. Like this color layout looked great. I throw it on my tank, like too many white LEDs. Hate it.
Yeah.
So then I bring it to my shop. I put it on my soldering plate. I replace the LEDs. It's all by hand. It's a delicate process to do that. Put different colors on, rearrange the layout, throw it over my tank again. It's got to pass the smell test. Does this look good? Am I going to be happy with like having my tanks, having my colors all kind of even? Like if I run all the channels the same percentage, is that like a decent look? It's not too blue. It's not too white. It's right in between. The visual test is important because people are going to be putting this in their homes. They're going to be putting it over their tank. The reef hobby is a very visual hobby, so the light has to look good visually too. And running under the spectrometer again, how does it look? Is it giving me enough spectrum? This one, I added a 405 nanometer, but really could I go a little bit lower? And can the optics handle that, right? If I go with a 380 or 390, will the optics be okay? So I got to figure out, okay, well, the optics material I could put up with 390, so I can go with some true UVA and dip down a little bit into the UV spectrum. So the next iteration is going to have some 390 nanometer in it. And so on and so forth. It's a continual process.
You and Don could talk to each other for hours.
We have.
You are really taking me out right now. Right, we've got some questions that Don we've put together for you, Logan. And if anybody in the audience watching now has got any questions for Logan, please, as always, throw them in the comment section. We'll do our best to throw them out. So one of the questions Don got for you is: Reef Breeders is the only premium light. Yes, we've talked about this briefly already. That has the option of manual controls. How did you come up with this idea that seems to be against the current trends?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I credit my business partner for that, Liam. That was his brainchild. And he was like, "You got to have a manual controller." And I don't know, I hemmed and hawed a little bit. It's kind of like, everybody wants to use a smartphone, but the reality is, it's hard to please everybody, right? Especially in a hobby like ours, where every tank is different, everybody has their own preferences, and there's a lot of variability. And the hanging methods are a good example of that, but that's kind of off topic. So really, that was kind of like, okay, well, how do I have the most advanced app control, but also offer an option where someone can just plug and play, not have to fiddle around with their phone. And if you're not super tech savvy, I deal with people all across the spectrum of capabilities with using technology. Some folks, I have to walk them through how to take a screenshot, which is not discounting them in any way, but it's like, okay, so a little tough to figure out what's going on your phone and get you connected. And then there's people like, okay, well, I'm going to log in and update my firewall settings. So there's that and everything in between. But anybody could plug this into the top of their light, turn a knob,
Mm-hmm.
know what percentage your light is at, because the dimming knob is pretty accurate and it tells you 1 to 100%. And then just program a very simple schedule, 8, 10, or 12 hours. It'll ramp up and ramp down for you, or just throw it on a timer and not have to worry about it. I mean, some folks just want their lights to come on at, say, 50% power, run like that for 14 hours, and then turn off. And that's totally fine,
Yeah.
you know? But for the people who want their lights to ramp up for 3 hours and then ramp down to 5% and then ramp back up to 50% and then ramp down to 5% or turn on and off every 3, I've seen programs that look like this, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know if that's
do you
good
throw
or bad
anything?
for the corals.
Do you throw anything in the box then with people having the manual setting? Anything in the box in terms of way of suggested programs based on what they're keeping in the tank, or do you just let people literally just?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go for it. How's it work?
So the way it works right now, I mean, the manual controller, this is an add-on item. This is like something you purchase separate. Sometimes we add them to sales as a promotion. Like, for example, Black Friday, we gave them out just for that weekend. That was like our Black Friday special, was like on top of the sale. Anybody who ordered, it would automatically like add one to their cart. So it's an optional thing. But they're pretty affordable. I mean, I think they retail for like 45 USD. So nothing crazy to just like plug in there. Yeah, absolutely, Terrell. I'm the community settings. So actually, he's got some. If you want to copy his settings, you can. Let's say you bought your corals from Putang Reefs. His settings are available in the community settings, and you could just go in.
Oh, so if you want to grow your corals better than Putang, you can get his setting. Is that what you're saying? Tweak it just a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
But if you're looking for a baseline, you could take his settings, and you could even reduce them down a little bit. Like, say you have a smaller aquarium, that sort of thing, and you could kind of just adjust from there and start as a template. The other thing the app does is when you make your first program, if you start from nothing and you just tell it on time and off time, it'll default you to a 1 hour sunrise, 1 hour sunset based on your on and off time. And it'll start with all channels at 30%, which is a nice baseline. It's like kind of at 30% power. The rule of thumb is you're not going to harm anything. If it's too little light for your system, you can kind of ramp it up over time. But it's basically just a safe program to start with. And I am doing an overhaul. I actually have just approved a bunch of changes to the app. There's a bunch of features coming. One of those is in the community settings. The way the community settings used to work, in the old app, we had a tab where there were like presets, right? So like LPS, mixed reef, SPS.
Yeah.
And we had those very basic presets in there. That kind of didn't carry over when we did the new app. The architecture is totally different. So it was a little odd having that tab there and not having those programs in there. We're eliminating that tab. That's going to be replaced entirely by the community programs. And the way that works is I'm going to be putting the soft corals, mixed reef, LPS, SPS settings, like the default start here kind of settings, under the community tab, and they're going to show up first. That's basically, so it's going to combine the two into one streamlined kind of a system. So you could just start out with like your LPS setting and go from there.
I like it. I like the fact you can share it. You can see what other people are doing. I mean, I know that there are other brands that years ago you could see other people. People used to share them, didn't they, on forums? Different schedules, should I say? Remember, Jamie, back in the day? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that. Next one we've got. When a Wi-Fi server is down, Reef Breeders Meridians are able to run their programs as usual. Is this an situation like Reef Factory products?
Yes. So if the Wi-Fi goes down, unplug your router, whatever, the light's just going to keep running. The program itself is saved internally. As a matter of fact, we have a Bluetooth coming here pretty soon. That's a totally different firmware set where you basically you program your light, and then once it's programmed, you're not constantly connected to it, so it has to remember it. The only thing that the Bluetooth won't be able to do is like acclimation modes, the moonlight modes, like the automated moonlight modes, because that has to pull data daily. That's like if you want to change your moon cycle based on your actual location with moonrise and moonset times, that does require internet, but the Bluetooth settings are not. And even the current way it works is it will save the daily program and it'll just run every day. So if what I do recommend for some folks, like if to rule out a router issue, some service clients are working with places that are, we're talking like really big corporations, that have these in like their boardrooms and stuff like that. They have their Wi-Fi is not like your home router. They have a whole IT system, all that stuff, firewalls.
Firewalls.
I had this one strange issue where the light, it would not turn on at the proper time unless I turned it to like UTC -14, like some kind of Pacific, Western Pacific Island time.
That sounds very familiar, Don, with that.
The Chinese Radian knockoff. Yeah.
Very similar.
I only saw that once, and it turns out they were blocking Google's time server, so that's why it couldn't pull the proper time zone. But once I figured that out, I passed that on to the IT department. They were able to whitelist that, and then bam, came out at the proper time. But if the Wi-Fi network was to go down, the light would it has a real-time crystal on board, so it knows what time it is independent of your Wi-Fi. And it has the program saved independent of your Wi-Fi. As a matter of fact, the server for the old app has been down for some time. It's basically just patched along right now so that users can still migrate over to the new app system. But it's been months, and those lights are just still running without the server being up. So
yeah, just like this guy. Remember when I got this before the Meridian was launched, and I didn't pay attention to the app saying, and one day one of my customers said, "Your light is blinking green." I said, "Oh, really? Yeah, it has been doing that for several months." I didn't even realize that, but it just runs as itself. Yeah,
blinking green, to clarify, means that it is not connected to the server. So
yeah, it's not connected to the server. So it was running by itself. I didn't even notice that. So until somebody pointed out to me, yeah, your light is not connected.
Doug, how long have you been running that light on that system?
On this light?
Yeah.
A year and a half now, right?
Just about.
Yeah, it's about. About a year and a half.
Even the new app came out, then yeah.
Yeah, actually, I got it before even the Meridian was launched.
Yep.
Oh,
you got one of the first ones from our first production shipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And how are you finding Coral Grove, Coraline, all the rest of it?
Great. Actually, the real story. A customer tried to reproduce the spectrum because he was very impressed about the color. Of course, now the color is all dimmed down for the live stream purpose. So he tried several different brands of LED. He cannot reproduce the color. He thinks this color is really present. But then I said, well, what's your suggestion? He asked me, I said, well, just go to Logan's website and buy a Meridian. That's eventually what he did. So the growth is...
You're sharing your settings, eh?
Huh?
I just hope that you're sharing your settings.
My setting is extremely simple. Every channel, 90%. Done.
And you run them a lot higher than most. And 90% is a pretty...
Yeah, 90% every single channel. And as 1 hour sunrise, 1 hour sunset. Yeah, that's it. So simple as that.
You've got the Meridian behind you that we can all see, but we can also see, and we've also heard many times on this podcast, the T5s.
Yeah.
Why haven't you got the Meridians where the T5s are?
Because there's some of the tanks really narrow and shallow.
Okay.
So yeah, I either have to hang the Meridian really high, but for matter of fact, the major reason is that nobody gonna buy my old light. I'm really stubborn, something like that. So I hold on to old things as much as possible. So last November, so I met Logan, and then actually I got 2 Meridian from him. I finally forced myself to change one of them. Well, actually, I changed the light on my the premium, the high-end SPS frac. Used to be an 8-ball T5 on it. So I changed that. And then I noticed that the frac in that tank was selling fast. because the color is much better.
You said this recently, yeah. You said this.
Yeah. It sounds fast, and that's the no complaint for the Meridian. I wish the Meridian was wider, but that's is only for my.
You need some edge bars, yeah.
Yeah,
the thing that interests me as well with these lights is obviously the problem we have with most of the lights is that A, they're really difficult to repair and do stuff with, and B, sometimes if you do so, you invalidate warranties and all that sort of stuff. So do you actively encourage that people can manipulate these lights themselves and you send out spare parts and all that sort of stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to be selling different LED boards that you can install. So, for example, I mentioned our shallow reef spectrum. I'm actually bringing in LED boards. So if you have a regular spectrum light and you want to swap it out, you could buy an LED board and plug it in, just like you can with the optics. Just about the only repairs I don't warranty are like if you spill water on the light, you drop it in the tank, and it's like a water damage thing. It's like I'll sell you the parts if you come to me and be like, "Look, Logan, I dropped my light in the tank. What can we do?" I'll sell you the parts just on the condition, like, "Look, I'm not going to warranty this light. Just like, I'll tell you how to get it up and running again. I can't guarantee stuff when it falls in a tank. That's about the only thing.
I think that's an advantage.
Sorry, Danny.
Because
Devil's Reef's putting LEDs on his car. He's putting LEDs on his car at the minute. He's just been modifying his car. He's put a few Meridian bars underneath, some Fast and the Furious after this evening's conversation. Go on, Don. Sorry, over to you.
I think that the user replaceable is not difficult at all. I actually, for the older Photon series, I got bored from Logan and swap out some of the other boards, the board that getting old or accidentally drop in the water. So I just buy the LED board and from Logan and just replace those boards. So I think that can be even be a feature that later on that to swap out older LED boards to keep the light running.
I like that. I like that concept of keeping the hardware.
I mean, you can see inside here. There's lots of room to work. I mean,
they're pretty easy. Yeah,
that looks really.
Everything's pretty accessible when you're in there. It's not like you need anything crazy to get at it.
So no, you don't.
It really is like you can. Very user serviceable.
So Logan? Where's the money coming in then? Where's the dollars getting spent in this fixture? Is it the LEDs? Is it the technology? Is it the hard? What is it? Where's it coming in? What are the people getting for their pound, their buck? What would you say is the standout sort of USP, should I say, of your product?
I mean, in terms of like. I guess I could say technology. I mean, we invested a ton of money in our app. I mean, just the whole idea of just making it the most stable, like easiest to use, best looking platform where, you could just very easily program your light. The connection's rock solid. That was like the most important, other than of course the light spectrum itself, that sort of thing. Obviously that's like the most important thing, right? But the technology behind that is really a deciding factor as well, because a lot of companies just don't really invest in that. I mean, some of my competitors, their app looks the same as it has like for like the last 10 years. It's kind of crazy. I mean, one thing that, again, very responsive to customer feedback. One thing that we've done is instead of just using like the translations that are like built into your Android or iPhone, you click a button and it translates it for you. We actually had our app developers put every single word and phrase in the app into like a CSV, like a file, line by line. And then I hired real human translators, no AI, none of that stuff, to actually translate it into various European languages. Like I've got it in Norwegian, Italian, German, Dutch, a few others like you could see through the app settings. So it's nice. I mean that's a big factor for sure in terms of like where most of the money is being reinvested right now is like improving the app. In fact, we're going to be rolling out a lot of features. They are premium features. I'm going to be offering like lifetime licenses that you can buy. So the way that it works now is like every feature in there is free right now and will always be free. So you're always going to have a fully usable app with your light. But basically the idea is, we have all these feature requests. It's really expensive to build these features.
Yeah.
So the thinking is, well, we'll have a premium option for the app where you have like access to all these like cool features. If you want to get like super technical and do all kinds of crazy stuff, then we have those features available for you. Basically any money that comes from that just gets reinvested into improving the app and adding to the suite of premium features. So that's like a really cool, like on the technology aspect. And then in terms of the physical hardware, I mean, one thing that I've always done is just like our lights, this is aluminum. Like if I don't know if you could see, but this is like the heat sink is the light. I mean, the whole light is aluminum. This thing is,
so that's not cheap to have that.
It's chunky. It's 3.85 pounds, so a little shy of 2 kilograms.
It looks
here.
very similar to the Reef Factory light.
Actually, if you take a look, this light is significantly larger. The Reef, I've seen that before. I've heard that before.
But the back, you've just shown me the back of that light looks very similar to ones I've seen. Very similar.
Yeah,
I might have a Reef Factory light here with me. I think I bought one to do a comparison. I'd have to go digging in my shelves, but it was about this size compared to the light. Like it was tiny. Right, okay. It was like maybe like a third of the size. Yeah. When you look at it, it's like, I mean, the similarities are like, yes, they're square, but it kind of ends there with the meridian.
So is my head. Okay, fair enough.
There's a Reef Factory one. It's on a mount, but it's kind of similar.
Yeah, that's what I was.
If you got something for size comparison.
But they are small.
Yep.
Well, that stand is really big.
Yeah, it's massive. It's far too big.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay. So you're saying the money really it's the technology. So one of the biggest frustrations I think most people have, I always moan about it, is you buy something and then a year later, or it seems to have slowed down. I've said this recently, but years ago you used to buy something in the next year or the next, you'll call it fall or whatever in the States, there was a new one came out, or a newer version, a version 2.0, 3.0, whatever. And if you hadn't got a certain version, you couldn't have the update of the newest one on your old. And when you're spending thousands of, hundreds and thousands of dollars and pounds, wherever you are, it can be a bit quite frustrating. So how do people buying your products with the technology aspect? How are they future-proofed? You've got the boards clearly that they can upgrade. So is it fair to say that this is just as much an investment as a purchase?
I mean, yeah. The photons, for example, those lights have been out since early 2016. You could take a day one photon V2, or your Evergrow light, right? You could buy a board from me and install that in your light, and you could use it with the current version of the app right now.
Yeah.
And that light is almost, 10 years old now. It's 2026. We just hit the 10-year mark. So you can still upgrade that light to work in the app.
If I've got 4 photon lights, and some of them have got issues with LEDs, as in not coming on, you're telling me I can buy the boards and just upgrade them?
I do have some of those boards. I think my spectrum might be a little different than yours if it's the international version, but they can work. In fact, I've repaired those at the board level before too. If you ever have a moment to take your light apart, take those little plastic optics off, give me some pictures of your LED boards, and I can usually spot the issue. It's basically, I call it find the green. Not money, I mean corrosion. If you look at the traces, you see a green spot.
No, definitely.
The copper's been corroded away. So, what you can do if you really want to stretch the lifespan of your light and you've noticed that you've got traces that are gone, you could actually take a little bit of sandpaper. I take a small cutting of sandpaper, put it on a plastic wedge, a screwdriver, whatever, very gently remove the coating. On the board, you could see the trace underneath. It's a trace level repair, but the traces are quite large. I mean, you're pushing, they're high powered LEDs, so it's not like repairing a motherboard. You could expose the copper, put a little bit of
solder.
I'm blanking. Yes, solder. Yeah. I like to put down the Why am I blanking on this? It's just the stuff that the solder attracts to.
Flux.
But yeah, more or less. The flux. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Put a little bit of flux on there. Solder.
You're all
it, take
nerds.
a little wire.
You're just all
put it on
nerds
there,
knowing these words.
conformal coating,
Flux.
and it's good as new.
No, the reason why I ask you is
Logan can do that. Yeah.
the reason why I'm asking is because I've actually got 4 of the Evergrows that I bought years and years ago, and they weren't great. And I've been I'm sure we all are guilty of this. We hoard things, don't we, in the reefing hobby? You've bought things that might not work, but for some reason you keep part of it just in case you break that part in the future.
Mhm.
But you know you're never going to break that part.
Like reef flare lights.
So you hold on to it. So I have got 4 photons that some of them work or some of the LEDs don't work. And I just wondered if it would. I was just intrigued because it's certainly not something I would do live, like the setting of the Stratton. But I just wondered if it's going back to the investment term. Is it a product that people can, within reason? I know you said water damage, but they can update and keep it up to date because. There's kind of another argument. Do you not think that? I know people are going to wince when I say this. Lighting, it's kind of lighting in it to an extent. There's so many different parameters in a reef tank. Once you've got lighting to an extent sorted, you don't really need to keep messing around with it. Do you not think?
I mean, you don't have to change your lights every year. That's for sure.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of LEDs.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
That's one of the problems that I run into is like, oh, well, the photon lasts for 10 years. I'm not selling someone another light unless they get another tank or upgrade. But I mean, that's whatever. I like my stuff lasting a long time because you know what? When they do upgrade or buy another tank, then they're gonna be like, well, darn, this light lasted for 6 or 7 years. They'll get another Reef Breeders.
I like the idea as well that LEDs might have a lifespan before the output starts to drop off or wane, or the odd diode will go out or whatever it is. But I like the idea that if I've bought a light for a big investment sort of sum, which they are, I can just change that and put a new board in. That's great. I'd rather have a £1,500 light that I can replace a £400 part of every 5 years than have to buy a £1,500 light every 4 years.
Well, it's the same as we don't talk about the T5 bulbs, changing the bulbs every 1-2 years or whatever. We talk about swapping around the other day.
Now you get brand new.
Get brand new. So
yeah.
Okay. So what is the lifespan, Logan? Would you suggest on your LEDs? What would you normally give them? I know you've got the warranty of 2 years. What would you normally recommend is the lifespan?
I mean, I've got lights out there that are 10 years old, still going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would officially put it at say like 5 to 7 years. You want to start considering an upgrade because the technology changes by then. I mean, really the core LEDs have been pretty stable for like the last 10 or so years. The Cree XTE, the 5-watt LED platform came out, and that's pretty much been the gold standard for 10 years now. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the biggest change was adding that indigo spectrum.
Yeah.
Was we were able to find like an efficient, reliable, package that was in that spectrum. But yeah, I mean, they could go for 10 years if you take good care of them. Basically, don't let them get covered in dust. Don't let them get covered in salt. And all that really means is you got to wipe it down every now and then with damp cloth.
So leave them in the box then, which is something I'm rather good at. Okay.
Leave them over your tank, but don't point your power head at them, and you'll be fine.
If anybody watching now or watching this back has got a light that they may want to upgrade or change, obviously I'm seeing on the website the lighting range here. How would they get in touch with yourselves? What's that process?
So we're pretty available on like social media. You can reach out through Instagram. If it's customer service stuff, like you need help with your lights, you can go to our contact page. I won't put my email right up in the video, but it is available there. If you go to the contact page, go straight to our opens a ticket for us at reefbreeders.com/contact. So that would be sales, or if you need any assistance with anything. And then we are a 2-man team, so it would be Liam or myself getting back to you.
Wow. Okay.
Nice. Okay.
So before we go back to the questions, you're not just about lighting, are you?
No, so we do have some other stuff. I mean, our biggest product other than lights would be our auto top-offs. Just a fantastic unit, very simple. It's got, so there you are right there. I mean, it's there's no like extra stuff with it, is how I would put it. You got your tubing holder. When I say no extra stuff, I mean it includes everything you need. It doesn't have like an extra box that you have to mount anywhere, like an external controller or anything. You plug the power supply in, you plug it into the assembly, and then that goes through the sensor to the pump, and that's it. So you just have that one plug. You don't have to like mount anything. It's got a magnet. You stick it right on your glass, and you're good to go. And then it's got two level sensors in there. It's got your regular everyday one that turns the system on and off normally. And then it's got a backup, and it's all infrared. So there's no, magnets to wear out, anything like that. That's the latest version. So we had, before that, the Prism ATO. It's a little bit longer, almost double the length. Came from a different factory. I mean, since then we've done a lot of different stuff. Like we just did a refresh for 2025 where we've switched to a new pump. So we got one that's like a little bit beefier, and then switched to a new power supply just for stability, because this thing just has to keep working and working and working. Like I basically forget about mine. I even went a step further. I drilled a hole in my floor, and I started a siphon from a bucket to all of my tank's ATO reservoir, and I have like a float in there, like a old school bubble float, that physically just turns off the siphon when my reservoir fills all the way up. But for actually filling the tank back up, I use my auto top off. That just fills the reservoir. So I don't have to lug buckets anymore. It's amazing. I used to get up at 3 a.m. when the reservoir was dry. Not anymore, but that's a whole different.
Talk to me about the Nano and Pico LEDs then. So what are these all about?
Yeah, so those are great little lights for like super small tanks. We're talking like a 12-inch cube, that sort of thing. Like the Pico LED, that one, it runs about 8 watts, and it's a good affordable light. It's got I think the coolest thing with that is like the little controller that comes with it. So again, you can use that a couple different ways. It's not app-based or anything like that, but you could select 8, 10, or 12 hours, and it'll do a 1 hour ramp up, 1 hour ramp down. And it also has a moonlight mode built in. So it'll run at 1% overnight if you program it to do that. Or you could just take that controller, leave it in the box, and plug it into a timer and have it turn on and off when you want. That's how I do it for I run those on my, on my LG turf scrubber. I've got 4 of them, like 2 on each side. I mean, my cabinet glows purple at night. It's a sight to see, but I just threw them on a timer, and they do fantastic. I mean, I must be pulling like a couple pounds of algae off that screen a week. So,
wow.
I was going to say that suits a refugium or a sump light or something like that. It's ideal, isn't it?
And also for freshwater tanks, they're really popular. I got a freshwater Spectrum. You could run a freshwater planted tank on that. They'll cover like an 18-inch cube for plants pretty well. So really good for that application too.
Definitely.
Yeah. Decent, especially at that price point. Yeah.
Protein skimmers. Reef Rhythm.
Yeah,
so at what point after the lighter did you go, right, we're going to go skimmers, we're going to do ATO? Was that just a business decision between you and your partner, or was that how did that happen?
I've been doing that for a long time. I mean, I've been bringing in pumps for almost as long as I've been doing lights. I mean, really, it's like I needed equipment for my aquarium. That's the latest way to put it. I needed a protein skimmer. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I could buy one that a competitor makes, or like I could start bringing them in. And what better way to test it than throw it on my tank? I mean, I've got 20 clownfish bouncing around in there, and they're all huge now because they eat twice a day. We're putting like 6 cubes of mysis a day in this freaking tank. I got to have a good protein skimmer. So, and then naturally return pump, auto top off. So all the ancillary equipment.
So you brought that in. Have you had much involvement in the development of that then, or the design, or?
In terms of the protein skimmers, I mean, the protein skimmer is pretty much all the same technology. You've got you got a needle wheel impeller. It pools air in through a venturi, and you got a bubble plate to disperse the bubbles. I mean, it's the simplest way to boil it down. I mean, most of my in-depth knowledge is going to be in lighting. I mean, that's where I know the most.
Yeah.
In terms of like DC motors and stuff like that, the most important factor there is just reliability. You know, is it going to keep cranking and cranking and cranking? Like when I'm bringing in a return pump, the way I test it is I do what I tell people not to. I throw it on my tank and I don't touch it for a year. I don't clean it. I don't take it apart. I don't do nothing. I just let it run, and see what happens. And so far, so good. I haven't taken my return pump apart in, I think, 2 years now, and I haven't noticed a difference. So I cleaned the grill off a couple times, but.
Okay.
So I'm running one of the largest the REEFBREEDERS protein skimmer. I think I bought it when it just came out from on the market, right, Logan? There was like 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. So maybe 3 years, but I never even touch it. Never clean it, never touch it. It just keep running until today. It's still working. I like the fact that it has a very narrow, very small neck, so the foam actually come up nicely, and has a big belly, so there's enough volume for the bubble to churn in there. And that little pump is pretty impressive because it's pretty powerful for the size of it, for the tiny little skimmer pump, but it pumps a lot of water and air. So yeah, they're basically maintenance free. But only one time I called Logan and said, hey, I unplug it, I plug it back on, then the motor is not running. Then Logan said, do you push that on button? Yep, it's a button.
Even Don can get it wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the questions here: the Meridians no longer have independent red and green channels. Can you please elaborate on this design?
Yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, those colors are pretty much useless. I mean, yes, red is absorbed by corals. The chlorophyll A does absorb 660 nanometer red, but most of that is replaced by using the warm whites. So we put a warm white LED in the spectrum instead. So you get all that red and amber spectrum from that. The main issue, the greens don't really do much anything at all.
Yeah.
What I usually use those for is for changing the color tone, which a lot of folks didn't understand. It's not immediately apparent, but if you turn your green LEDs up, and I made a PAR simulator too a while ago. I took a spreadsheet and I figured out what percentage of PAR contributes from each channel. So like the reds and greens did something like 2 or 3% each. So really, really small contributors to PAR. I actually replaced those specifically with near UV. So instead of red and green, you get a color that's far more useful to your coral's growth and health. And most people were just turning those off entirely. Really, with the green LEDs, what you use them for is if you want to give your light a whiter look without turning up the white LEDs, in other words, like increasing the power and providing too much light to your corals where you could like burn stuff, you could turn the green LEDs off, or up rather. And what those do is red, green, and blue combine, right? Just like an RGB LED. To the human eye, that looks like white light. So if you turn those greens up, what you're doing is you're simulating white light without, it's just a visual effect without actually increasing the PAR by any really significant amount. The red LEDs, kind of similar, right? If you want your light to look more purple, right? Red and blue make purple. So if you turn the greens off and you turn up your reds, you're going to get more of a purple color tone. So really, it was just for tonal control. Most of the time when I was building programs for people, I would put the reds at 3%, the greens at 0, and then the white LEDs. That was another thing that was changed as well. You know, we dropped the reds and greens completely because they weren't being utilized and aren't very useful on their own. The other thing that we did was we reduced the number of white LEDs. So in the default spectrum on the Meridians, we reduced it from 5 white LEDs to 2. The reason being, on the photons, every single person pretty much that I was working with on setting up a program or receiving feedback from, they were running the white LEDs at 1/3 or less of what they're running the blues and violets at. So that basically means that you have 5 LEDs, but you're only using the power that 2 of them would be putting out, right? So you have all this capacity for wattage. You've got one red, one green LED. So per cluster, those 2 LEDs that you're just not using pretty much. And then you've got 3 white LEDs that you're not using. That's almost a quarter of, actually about 30% of your light's capacity. So you have, say, 120 watt light, and 30% of that, 40 watts, you're not even going to be using, because you need to turn the white LEDs down and you need to turn the reds and greens off. So that was a big factor with the Meridian, is we made them 30% more efficient, meaning you can run all of your colors at the same power or close to it. You know, you don't have to adjust the white LEDs quite so much to get it bluer, or turn them up, you know, quite so much to get it towards like a lighter color spectrum. So you have a lot more usable energy, you know, that capacity. So like the 75 watts in a Meridian 11, you can use every last bit of it. You're not turning any colors off, because every single color is important and useful.
That resonates so much with me. I'm one of those people that I've spent hours and hours and hours and more hours adjusting the bars on the lights, changing every little tiny speck of it. Too much choice. It's like when you go to a restaurant and they've got like 5 pages of a menu. It's like, I just want 4 choices.
And you order everything off all 5, Jamie, yeah?
Yeah. But you know what I mean? So I think we've got too much choice and we don't know what we're doing with it. If you just take that away, like you say, cut it back to what you actually need. Why do they overcomplicate things sometimes with 7 channels or more of adjustments to make? You don't need it.
Yeah. No,
that's why I throw this one 90%, every channel done. So when people ask me, oh, how should I run my Meridian? I say, oh, simple. Set all the channels same level and just forget about it. 1 hour RAM up, 1 hour RAM down, and then every channel, you want 50%, or 50%, or 75%, or 90%, or whatever that your coral can tolerate. Simple, easy, and all the power, the juice that is utilizable. So that's make everything much simpler and also make it more efficient.
Yeah,
but you can still dial it in, right?
There is that
for
trade-off,
example, sorry,
Logan. So that there is that trade-off between running it all at the same percentage, just because the corals do well, but there's the trade-off between obviously natural daylight and it's an ornamental thing as well. You want it to look really good, so that's why we bring the blues and the ultraviolet stuff in, isn't it? So you have to have that acknowledgement that you might, for 2 hours in the evening when you're sat in your living room, you want it a bit bluer and you want it a bit poppy, don't you?
So that's exactly what I was going to bring up. So I started with all channels even, and then on my personal tank, I'm like, I'll dial the whites back a little bit. So I'm like, okay, well now I have those at, you know, maybe 75% of what I have the blues at, or even half. I have to double check my program. And then the cool blues, because the human eye is really adept at picking up green hues, the cool blues would be the closest to that spectrum, where it's like, it's not quite cyan, but if you move 5 or 10 nanometers towards green from like 470 to 480, you're getting towards the cyan range. So that does still change the color tone of your light by a decent degree. So I actually turned my cool blues up a little bit because I kind of like the way it looked in my smaller tank. In my main tank, I have, you know what? I still have a demo light on there with like, it doesn't have the up-to-date spectrum. So 2 clusters have 3 LEDs that are white and 2 of them have 2. So that one's kind of more of a mixed bag. I'll have to find a scratch and dent Meridian to throw on that tank eventually. But I mean, my anemones couldn't be happier. So,
you know, when you talked about the community aspect earlier, which I think is a great concept. What sort of advice do people get given? What advice is there out there for people? Put my teeth back in terms of hanging, in terms of light, hanging the light fixture, in terms of distance from the coral and the water, because surely that plays just as much of an important factor as what intensity and what levels you've got all these lights set at. Surely the placement and the spread is something to consider.
Absolutely, and that's going to change for every aquarium.
Yeah.
You know, if your tank is 60 centimeters front to back or 45 centimeters, that's going to change how high you hang the light. Also, which type of optics you have. So general rule of thumb, you want to be about 10 to 14 inches above the water on a 60 centimeter front to back tank with the default optics, right?
Okay.
But really, at the end of the day, if you have access to a par meter, that's going to be your surefire bet, like best way to figure out where you're at. So that's what I would recommend. But if you don't have access to a par meter, rule of thumb, 10 to 14 inches for a standard 2-foot or 60 centimeter front to back tank. And then start at 30% power and just slowly work up from there. And if you gradually gain intensity, like that's the most important thing. If you don't have a par meter and you don't have a point of reference, you're never going to harm anything by starting too low. It takes many months of insufficient light, and even at 30% power, that's not going to be insufficient for anything other than a more demanding aquapora or something like that. 30% power will still be enough for your corals to live and grow on, especially if you're talking anemones, soft corals. Like I have LPS at the bottom of my tank as well. But I'm only running my lights about 40% power, and that's right where I'm stopping at. If I go to 50% power overnight, all my anemones will scatter like roaches. I mean, they just leave the top of the tank and they just disaster.
Okay.
So, start low, work up slowly over time. SPS dominant. So you can go the route of what Dong is doing, where he's got everything at 90% power, but do so with caution. You can get to 90% power, but he didn't do it overnight. And again, with Putang, that's going to vary for every tank. He's got, on some of his systems, he'll have multiple rows of light. So he's got like a wider blanket and he can just run everything lower. So it really depends on how many lights you have over the tank, the depth of your tank, and what par values you're shooting for. I mean, I know like Battle Corals, for example, too, he's running a lot of the meridians, and I'd have to double check his meridian settings. I know when he had the photons, he just ran everything full tilt, but he's looking for like 550, 600 par. That's like your average SPS dominant system. You might be shooting for 300 to 350. And in fact, some of the research, like some of the work by Dana Riddle, shows that like Possiloporas tend to be most efficient around 225 par. So they are still getting more of a benefit at higher par, mind you. You're not like losing; it's just marginal. So if you're at 500 par, yes, you'll see more growth, but it's not going to be twice as fast at 250 par. It might be like 10% or 15%. There's a declining benefit to pushing more and more light.
Right. Okay. What else we got in the Dong library of questions this evening for you? Where are we? What are the key design features on Meridians that target longer service life? We've kind of touched on this a little bit this afternoon. What is the expected life expectancy of Meridians? So 7 to 10 years, you were saying? Is that right?
If you take good care of them, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I don't see why you couldn't get 10 plus years out of them. I mean, really. And when
I have one that is 10 years. Yeah.
Well, not Meridian, but photons. Similar.
Yeah, the photon.
Right? But I mean, what are the key design features, right? So you'll see here there's a cooling fan in the middle, right? That's temperature controlled. I will get contacts every now and then asking if their fans are supposed to be running. And the truth is, not really. I mean, when you hit 70% power or so for a prolonged period of time, your fans might come on every now and then, but most folks are never going to notice their fans coming on. And if they are coming on, they're pretty quiet, so they're not really noticeable, but it's all like, this whole light is aluminum. It's not like a small aluminum heat sink that gets really hot and has to have a plastic enclosure so you don't notice how hot it's getting. The light is the enclosure. The nature of it is that it's mostly passive cooling. So yes, it has active cooling built in for folks who are running their lights at near full tilt, but for the most part, it's all passive cooling. And then the light is pretty well sealed, as long as you keep it reasonably dry. Like above the tank is fine. Even in canopies, totally fine.
Wow.
When I say water damage or like getting too much water on them, I have gotten pictures of lights or received lights where it is literally so encrusted with salt that the light has changed. I only make them in one color. I make them in the color like Henry Ford, right? One color as long as it's black. Well, my light shouldn't be white with salt creep, okay? That's the only time where I've been like, but if you basically don't have a power head aimed up, like splashing on it continually, just common sense things. It's like moisture doesn't harm the light. The light is warmer than ambient room temperature, so it doesn't get condensation on it. That's not going to be harmful to your fixture. What is harmful is excess splashing if you just let dust and salt build up on the light's case. If you don't have too much splashing, just be mindful of that sort of thing. And if you see like specks of salt on there, just wipe them off every now and then. And when I say every now and then, I haven't touched my light in like 8 months. So I'm probably due for a dusting. So maybe every like 6 months or so, take a damp towel, wipe down the bottom, wipe down the top. And that's pretty much it.
I'm here.
Yeah, so this light has been running since this morning, like 8 a.m. So basically this is cool. It's cool to touch.
Yeah, it's probably like
a
little bit above body temperature, maybe like 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
So one of my frequent asked question, because I from my customer, is that, are those fans defective or are they supposed to run it? No, so I said, touch the light. So, oh, okay, yeah, it's cool. So that's why it's not running. It's thermal control. So yeah.
One of the other questions on the back of that was you were asking what your opinion is regards to sort of more passive cooling products that are out there at the minute, Logan, because there seems to be quite a lot of this that we're seeing at the minute in the hobby. Have you got any opinion on that, like the Stratton behind me?
Well, the thing with passive cooling, I mean, there's a couple approaches to it, right? So, for example, your Stratton, I mean, for a similar length light, I mean, how many watts does that one pull?
Now you're asking me. Jamie, over to you. It's a technical question. I don't answer those.
Give me a minute.
No. Give me a minute.
Yeah, sorry.
Let me guess. 215.
I had to move it, but if I'm correct, they're typically about half the wattage per foot out of those lights compared to a Meridian. That's why the active cooling is important, because you're running it at 90%, like Dong is. The fan coming on every like 15 minutes or so just to like speed things along. It's nice to have, and it means that you could push more power and your LEDs will last longer because they stay at a constant temperature. They don't go beyond a certain threshold.
Jamie, did you find the answer?
Give me a minute.
No.
So for our lights that don't have active cooling,
I can tell you mine. I can tell you mine are currently pulling 71 watts each, but they're ramping down, so that doesn't really tell us much.
Yes.
The app tells you a live sort of readout, which is quite cool.
That is pretty nifty.
Yes, very much. Going back then to the questions for a minute while Jamie researches the wattage, can you please elaborate on the optics design?
What aspect about it? I mean, I guess I could do like an overall overview. So when I said earlier, it's like an integrated splash shield and optics. So this is all one panel, like a single molded panel. Not a cheap mold. I mean, we made like 3 different kinds, and we're continually, adding to it. So the plan is to add even more options. Basically, the way that our lights work, and I'm not really aware of any competitors that are doing this right now. I'm sure someone out there offers interchangeable optics, but what sets the Meridian apart really is the default optics that come with it. They're 90 degrees, right? So you can't tell, like if you look at it, just like look at it, it's hard to tell just looking at the plastic panel. You're not really going to see much of a difference. It's all like on the engineering inside of it. And they're all stamped with what degree they are, but basically they come as a default with 90-degree optics, very easy to swap to narrower optics. So say you have a 4 or 5 foot deep reef tank, which some folks using Meridians do. They're growing LPS in a sand bed at 4 or 5 feet, and you need a tighter optic for that. You got to push hard down to the bottom of the tank. So that's where our focus lenses come in. They're 45 degrees. So the 2 applications for that. The one that I just pointed out would be for like a deeper reef tank. The other application is if you need to mount your lights higher above the tank. And I had one client that had a canopy that was 17 inches tall, and he mounted his lights on top of that. Now with the default optics, he was getting a little too much spread, so he wasn't pushing as much power as he'd like on the bottom. He throws the narrow optics on there, the focus lenses, and now he's got the perfect spread for his tank. And then on the flip side, we've got the Encompass lenses. So they take your light from 90 to 110 degrees. So if you're in a situation where, say, you have a canopy and you can't mount it high off the water, you can compromise and get more spread, or you could get more spread without compromising by just installing different optics.
That's clever.
So is there a plan to have magnetic or glue-on optics so you can just, without opening up the light, just
maybe
so
on the next iteration.
I think that would be pretty interesting, right? So I know many people are afraid to use a screwdriver on the light. They would much prefer doing something that's external.
Fair enough. There's definitely like you have to have some degree of handiness or like ability to work with tools, but you don't need any special tools. Anything like just a regular screwdriver. You can take these things apart. I don't do anything crazy like star heads with security pins in them to make it difficult to open.
I was just about to go back to your phrase a minute ago with the light that you'd had pictures sent in with salt creep everywhere, and it was an absolute. So, what is your, manufacturer's, professional sort of suggestion when it comes to maintenance of this sort of equipment? How should people be looking after? I know it's a boring question to ask, but if you want to extend the longevity, and you want to get your money's worth,
I would say it's a common sense thing, right? If you see salt building up on the bottom of your light, then where's it coming from? It's excess splashing, that sort of thing. Typically, if you take your return pump nozzle and you tilt it down a couple of degrees, and you still have water movement. What I'm talking about is like I've literally seen like it's just spraying up into the air above your tank, which doesn't really help anything. It's not good for your aquarium either to have water just spraying out of it. Basically, just be mindful of how much splashing. And that goes with any light. I mean, you're coating the inside of your canopy and around all of your equipment with salt creep. It's not good for anything. Basically, try to keep the light reasonably clean and dry. And for most people, that just means wipe it down every 6 months or so. My light doesn't have any.
So remember this?
I have an open top tank. What's
is that for the cat or is that for the line?
Many years ago. So the auto for car for detailing brush. So I actually I think I got it from you, Logan. That to brush on top of the.
I bought like a set of 5, and I think I gave you one.
That was a long time ago. So you see this. So the brush on the photon. Yeah, the groove
has a lot more fins, and that one's a lot harder to clean. Because the fins also they end behind the case. I mean, with this one, the fins go like all the way out. You can, and they're a little bit spaced a bit more. We've made the fins like kind of ridged and stuff like that.
On the photons, I used to use the cotton wool buds,
the Q-tip,
and run those down on the photons quite often. Yes. Right,
but for the average person,
go on.
6 months or so, damp cloth under the bottom.
Yeah,
damp cloth on a Swiffer or whatever, duster on top, and that's it.
Okay, fair enough.
And I have an open top tank, and I have like one of those clear mesh lids. I don't have any splash shields or anything, and I have plenty of surface movement on my tank. My power heads make the surface move. My return pumps make the surface move. When I say adjust your return pumps a little bit, I mean, like, don't literally have a spray bar spraying up in the air. I've seen that before. Like, you have tons of water movement on your tank. It's just not splashing like out of the tank.
Yep.
But that, like I said, common sense kind of a thing where you're just, but how you should have your tank set up anyways.
Is there a plan to create an ecosystem with Meridian LED wave pumps return? Good question, Dosey. But is there a plan to link everything together in the future?
Eventually. I mean, it's an ongoing project. Like I mentioned earlier, developing an app's incredibly expensive. I mean, it was a huge investment, which I think is worth it. I mean, it's a rock solid platform that we own fully and can continue to expand on. So yeah, I do have some exciting stuff involving that, kind of in the works. Going to start with lighting as our core product, but really, I mean, everything at this point is just getting reinvested into building that product line. So, in years to come, yeah, I mean, that is the plan.
Please elaborate on the Meridian Edge light bar designs that are different from other LED. Yes, good question. There are quite a lot, aren't there, in the market? I think these days, I think a lot of people do buy these. They tend to be bought on a, I need more blue, so I'm going to get some edge bars, or I've got, not got the spread, so maybe it's down to the depth of the tank, or how there's been, the light's been hung, or I don't always think they're necessary. Is kind of where I'm going. No offense, I'm just think it depends on the application, really. And I'm guilty of both, but I just think quite often people go, I need more blue. You need edge bars.
So I've actually got different spectrums of edge bars. So, like I said earlier, you could use it for more par for an SPS dominant system in the same area, or you could expand your light. But why are they different, and why are they more expensive? Seemingly, I would say, if you look at the wattage. So, for example, our edge bars are 30 watts per foot. So, what is that? 1 watt per centimeter, let's say.
Yeah.
Most competing bars that are the more budget minded, like cheaper bars, they're about a third of that power. So you could get a 5-foot bar from a competitor that pulls like 50 watts from the wall and has one control channel and might be dimmable through a knob. Or I think one of our competitors has an app that you can control, but you have to buy like a separate thing, and then it plugs into multiple bars, and it's like a whole thing. These have the app. I mean, the circuit board is integrated in there. When you buy the app version, there's no like extra stuff that you have to put on there. It's fully controlled through the app. It's got 2 channels, and it's 150 watts at full power. It is 1 watt per centimeter. I mean, it's a beast. Like they're really, I guess I would say the nearest comparison in terms of like power, like in terms of like the wattage draw, would probably be like an AI blade. But those have a bit of a different application. Like they don't have any lenses in there. So there's basically just the raw LED. So you get a lot of spread out of those. These have 45-degree lenses. So you get pretty intense light. Like it's meant to cover about a 6 to 8 inch area. And we are working on wider optics as well. We're going to be offering 80 degrees here soon with our next production batch is the plan to bring those in as an option. So you could open these up. They're very easy to service, like as a user serviceable thing. There's an end cap, 4 screws, dimming knob. You pull that off, you slide the glass out, and then the optics can be unscrewed and replaced. So that's an upgradable thing as well. But yeah, I mean, when you factor in just the sheer power, 150 watts for the 5-footer, 30 watts for the 11-incher. So it goes 30, 60, 90, 120, 150 in terms of power. I mean, they're more powerful than some like panel lights of the same size.
Well, I was just thinking exactly that. I mean, from listening to what you're saying, you haven't really, depending on your Rockscape, clearly, or your Aquascape, sorry, you've not really got any reason to buy another panel of yours, another light fitting, because you can just use you can Meridian, you can just use the supplement bars, couldn't you, if you really need it, based on what the power they can give, like you've just explained.
That's the idea. So say you have an SPS dominant system, or let's say you just have a reef tank that's a little bit deeper than most, right? So your standard tank is 60 centimeters front to back. Well, I have a tank that I want that's whatever the equivalent of 30 inches. So what's that? Around about 75, 80 centimeters front to back, right?
Yeah.
So you could get 2 Meridians and stack them together. I mean,
ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching
out of your tank, but yeah, it's a little bit overkill. Or you could, instead of just getting a Meridian, you could get a Meridian and edge bar bundle, or you could start with a Meridian if it's a mixed reef tank and you get more into SPS, and you could bring the light a little bit closer to the water, or swap your optics and then throw the edge bars on there. You could even buy a bigger power supply and link everything on one power cord. So really, I mean, the system can grow with your needs.
See, when we talk to suppliers about their products like we are now, I think in my head about how I would apply that in my setting. So you can see from my tank behind me, I've got 2 dark spots in between my lighting, right?
Yep.
You see those?
Yeah.
They're not as evident in real life, but there's
the brace, right?
There's definitely that's where the brace bars are. So I've been thinking about just putting one of these sort of edge bars, a strip light down the front, just to take away that little dark sort of patches. And some of the options we have, obviously, they come with like fixed brackets, so they're stuck. Whereas your ones I saw earlier, you can unscrew them and change the angle of those, can't you? You can have them down, up. That sort of thing really appeals to me because I could clamp those onto the side up here and have maybe one at the front but angled into the tank, so I'm not getting light spill, and the one at the tank flat. You know what I mean? There's a bit of variation there, isn't there?
Exactly. So if you had meridians and you wanted to attach your edge bars to them, you could very easily do that. And then also a part of why we offer so many lengths. So your tank looks like 180 centimeters. Am I correct?
And I just muted myself because my apex speed is going off.
Apologize.
Yeah, it's 8 foot, but 30 inches front to back.
Okay, it's 8 foot.
Yeah.
So that changes it a little bit, but typically you could work out between our different sizes which one has clusters that will fall on either side of your center brace. So you're not getting that shadow, so that everything overlaps and the lights start to meet underneath the center braces. So with like a 6 foot tank, for example, what we found is that 2 Meridian 35s work wonderful for that sort of a system, because you got the 2 clusters in the middle, right? And then you've got 2 clusters on the outer sides, and then you get the 2 center braces, and you could adjust them a little bit because you have like that overlap effect in the middle where the lights meet. So it's kind of like there's a lot of different applications where having like so many different lengths kind of just makes it more customizable and fit every different reef tank.
There's a really good question in here from John Wright. Has Logan thought about making a battery backup unit that will run any equipment and last more than one in the market now?
I have. The engineering behind batteries can be quite expensive. Something that we definitely want to do eventually is have something that would like integrate with the app, like notify you when the power is out and keep critical equipment running. There actually are some things on the market right now that do a pretty good job from like really big companies. They're not meant for aquariums specifically, and they don't power your DC devices directly, right? So the main advantage that our product would have is like, and again, this is just kind of something thinking about doing at some point in the future, especially as batteries get better and better. The idea being that instead of powering an AC outlet, which then powers your AC DC adapter in the event of a power outage, you have something that cuts that out and goes straight to like 48 volts or 24 volts DC, and it's a lot more efficient because you're gaining at least 15-20% battery life just by skipping that AC DC conversion, where you lose a decent chunk of efficiency. So that would be really cool. But I will say there are some out there from like bigger brands like Anchor, for example. They make like these big chunky batteries for camping. Those I would say are a pretty decent option to keep like your return pumps going and stuff like that. I would say really the hardest thing to make battery powered, like if I have a power outage right now, it's freezing out. My biggest worry would be the temperature of the tank. And, if you have a sizable aquarium, 100 gallons, 400 liters, you're basically looking at like, 1,000-watt heater. Well, you can't really run that on battery power, unfortunately. And unless you have a whole home battery, that's not really super practical. If you're talking about a prolonged power outage, at that point, you just need a generator. So it's like a very, but what I will say is for shorter power outage, which is like 99% of the time, within a few hours, right, your power is coming back on. A DC backup that directly powers return pumps would be the best solution and has no interruption, right? So I carry a product right now. It's not something that I make. It's just like a third-party product, and they're okay. They're lead acid, so they don't last as long as like a lithium battery would. But they will keep your return pump running if it's like a 24-volt return pump for like maybe 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the size of the pump. If it's a smaller pump, like what I recommend oftentimes is like run a small power head on it. So you have like water flow, air circulation, basically. But yeah, that's a good question. It would be nice to have like a bigger lithium battery. To my knowledge, is not offered specifically for the hobby right now.
So I think what John was kind of saying, Logan, is get off the live stream, go back in your bedroom, get the computer back up, and get working. Come on. What other questions do we have in here? Can you please elaborate on the Meridian Edge bar designs? Yeah, we've talked about that.
We already answered that.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about the strands. In today's market, do you think it's oversaturated for marine LED lighting? What's your plan to stand out from the competitors? Good question.
Oversaturated. Interesting. I don't know. I think it's great to see a lot of options out there. I mean, what's my plan to stand out from competitors? I don't know. I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of companies kind of come and go with one gimmick or another. I mean, really, it's my thing has always been just build a high quality product, build the best LED layout I can, and don't be afraid to take customer feedback, take suggestions, and just keep improving the product. That doesn't mean like release a new product and you got to buy this upgrade kit or whatever, or your product is no good anymore. It's more like people have ideas, and if I can actually make that happen on the next production batch, then why not continually improve?
Yeah.
I don't have to completely revamp the product every year. But I think my main competitive advantage is like we're a smaller operation. We move very quickly, and I'm very mission focused on just improving the product and the experience for our users, as opposed to like just trying to make as much money as possible. I like I said, I live a very economic lifestyle. I drive a Honda Accord. I do a lot of the repairs myself on the darn thing. I really, I just want to keep making awesome stuff, and one of the perks of my job
is your collection of tools, worth more than your car by any chance?
Oh, geez, it's got 140 something thousand miles on it now. I don't know. We're getting there.
I had a feeling you might say that. Wow. Okay. So stand out from the competitors. Just be you. Do what you do. Excellent customer service. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess one example I could say, like when I say continual improvements, I mean, well, here's a driver board, right? So one thing I noticed, I guess I could zoom in a little bit. I mean, it's just like a circuit board, but one of the things that I noticed is like the LEDs in moonlight mode seemed a little bit bright. I run the moonlights. I have a breeding pair of clownfish. I mean, they don't breed too much anymore. They're 10 plus years old at this point. I think those two are. They got to be approaching 10 years of age. So I think they're more in their empty nest phase, but they still respond quite a bit to the moonlights. So what I do is I run the moon cycle, which includes the moonrise and moon set time, which is something new that I introduced when we released our new Reef Breeders app. It pulls real-time weather data API sourced from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So it tells you moon brightness and percent illuminance. It tells you moon rise and moon set time based on your exact location. So the moonlight won't turn on if the moon's below the horizon, which is a really cool feature. So it's actually like, instead of just changing the brightness, it changes when the moonlights come on. But one thing I noticed was the moons were a little bit brighter than I would like. So I actually had the factory change the minimum dimming threshold for every single LED channel. So you could actually dim the lights even lower, which is like a small change, but for me, I really like it because I'm like, well, now my moonlights get even dimmer, so I can really experience the moon phase, even when I set it to the lowest possible percentage that I offer in the app.
Wow!
So I really like that.
That was one thing I was going to ask you earlier, Logan, about the way the hobby's going. More and more of us, and quite a few listeners, are getting into the spawning, right? And at the moment, you've got to link them up to your Apex and do loads of fancy programming to get your moon cycles right and all this stuff. So is yours? You say you're automatically got live moon programming on these units?
Oh yeah, 2 button presses and you can turn it on.
Why is it such a faff to do it with the most expensive equipment on the market. If it's as easy as just that. That's really
I'm even working on now this is the premium feature because I developed it separately. But I had a marine laboratory reach out to me, and they have to they have to have a lab assistant or something like that every week make a spreadsheet with the sunrise and sunset times. Not yet. It's still, Hondas have good resale value. But
yeah.
But they were asking for variable sunrise and sunset times along with the moonlights based on real locations for reefs around the world. And the kicker is they also want it to be so that it's nighttime in the lab during the day, because they don't want to have to be on call for coral spawning events at 2 a.m. They'd rather have the coral think it's 2 a.m. and spawn during the day. So that's one feature that I've got in the pipeline. I think it's like 99% done. I'm going to be testing that out pretty soon. It's going out with a whole batch of like updates that should be coming hopefully in the next like few weeks or so, depending on when our app developers can fit it in their schedule. But that's one premium feature where basically like has more than just hobbyist applications. Like your average hobbyist, we're going to be using this more as like a curiosity, where it's like really cool to have my lights turn on and off different times during the day based on like what it's doing in the Great Barrier Reef, or in like one of the reefs off the coast of the Caribbean or something like that. But the main application for it is really marine labs actually spawning corals. And I actually do have my lights are in several labs around the country for coral research, which I think is really cool. I mean, personally, I think that puts a smile on my face when a school's running it for doing like real experimentation.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Definitely. Well, that sort of links into the next question. Well, one of the other next questions, sorry, regarding coral farming then. So where are we with my questions? So from your experience in terms of LED lights, what are the major requirement differences from coral farms versus hobbyists? Is Reef Breeders lent towards coral farms or hobbyists?
Yeah, I would say, we fall somewhere in between where, our lights work really well in
that's
coral
a politician's that's a politician's answer.
I know.
That. Well done.
I'm going to explain. I'm not just deflecting, but very, very politician-y. Okay, fair enough. But I'll explain what I mean by that. So, I've had people say to me before, like, "Hey, I love your light. It works for me, but it's not very sexy, is it?" And it's a big square hunk of metal, right? The way that I think about that is like, well, yeah, I mean, that's because it's built for a reason to grow and color corals. I mean, my answer will be, oh yeah, well, I think it looks fantastic, and whatever, to each their own. But it's for a coral farm doesn't really care so much about what the light itself looks like. Like, oh, it has a sleek case, it looks like an iPad or whatever. It's more like, is this powerful enough to get the par numbers I'm shooting for? Is the spectrum right to grow my corals? Are my corals going to grow fast enough and look good enough that my customers will want to buy them? And then I'm going to make my money back growing corals. And, it's a business decision as opposed to like, how does the light look? How does it make me feel? Like more of an emotional decision, right?
Aesthetic.
Exactly. Aesthetic. So that's why I say like, well, I fall somewhere in between where it's like the look of everything, the way that we do our hardware, all the hardware is color matched, everything is black. So it's like sleek and looks good. I have right angle cords. I sell back a tank mounts where you could hide the cord in the mount. Whereas a coral farm, they don't really care about that stuff. What they like is there's bolts on top of this fixture. All right. There's 6mm bolts up here, and you could attach this to just about anything. You could build an 80-20 T-Track system. If you're familiar with Putang Reefs, that's how he does it. I mean, he puts standoff bolts on top of the bolts in here, he puts the T-track adapters on there, and then he slides them into his T-track system. So they're easy to mount, they're easy to reposition for maintenance, and they're rock solid the way that they're mounted. And
I don't
it's easy to run cords to all
think,
of them.
I don't think Terrell does it, Logan. I think I've heard it's actually Lindsay that does all the work at Poohtang. I think Terrell gets way too much recognition for her hard work. Okay, fair enough. No, good answer. Okay. Any plan to develop LED horticulture for horticulture? Sorry, of freshwater hobbyists, as the markets are significantly bigger. Good question, Don.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some work on doing like horticulture lights, but I mean, not really my main focus. And I don't partake in certain plants. That's the I guess where all the money's supposed to be right now. Not really my cup of tea. So I don't know. I'm really passionate about the reef lights, and that's why that's really what drives me. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't do this for the money. I do it because I love it and I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's really just like, horticulture lights. Yeah, there's a lot of money in there. I'm not super passionate about it. It might be something that I'll get into if the opportunity arises, but I don't know. I don't, I'm not going to set up a grow room and experiment with plants and see what the best results are. Even a lot of my friends since college have toned down on that, so I don't know if I have quite the pool of testers that I might have once had.
Just set up a glow room, not a grow room, perhaps. Anyway, regarding
freshwater,
LED, yes.
Sorry, still on that same question. I do for freshwater. I do have some stuff for that. I do have freshwater edge bars, but the cost is a factor. For a lot of freshwater tanks, I mean, you buy a freshwater fish, you could buy one for $2, $3, a couple of pounds. And you could stock your tank with hundreds of fish for what it costs to just buy a couple for a reef tank. Never mind the equipment cost. So I don't know. It's I do sell some lights that are great in like that budget area for like freshwater, and there are some high-end freshwater tanks that are far and away from that. I mean, I've seen some fantastic, not discounting it at all, planted tanks. I even tried that once. Harder than a reef tank. I mean, I guess reefing is mostly what I know, but those planted tanks, man, they're nothing to mess around with. But yeah, that's
In terms of LED chip manufacturers such as Cree and Philips, how do you choose what brands of LEDs for Meridians?
Basically on spectrum and power requirements, and also the solder footprint. I know that's sounds maybe a little bit in the weeds there, but basically I like having every single LED in the Meridian is the same size. So the solder footprint on the PCB, like on the printed circuit board, I could switch between different brands of LEDs that are the same size. Because Cree, for example, they don't offer like the indigo color that we have. They don't offer the near UVs or the UVAs that we have. So those colors need to be sourced elsewhere. I'll say those chips are made in Taiwan, so the quality with those are going to be exceptional. But basically, having that size platform means that when we release different color spectrums, so for example, with the shallow reef, we can keep the same LED board, right, and change what colors we place on there. And then in the app, this kind of ties back into the what sets our app apart, like the technology. We built a function of the app where you could edit the color channel. So if you buy a custom layout, which we're moving in that direction, like where we're going to be offering just, you can choose every color you want, and basically as long as it's the right wattage, you can put it on that channel. And then we could actually build you a custom light. The idea being that you can then go in the app and make sure it matches the colors that you put on that channel. So for example, with the shallow reef, now that there's 2 white LED channels on there, you still add it as a Meridian. So the first thing you'll notice is like channel 1 says indigo or near UV, but it's actually the warm white LEDs. So you just tap the little pencil icon up in the top right corner, and then you could change the color. Like you pick from a color wheel, so you could change it to like a yellow or, you know, kind of orangey color, which I like for warm whites to represent it. And then you type in warm white, you hit save. And not only does it save to your programs, if you go and share that program, it'll also pull up on that shared program. When someone else, like if you have a shallow reef spectrum and you customize your color channels, or you even have a custom color spectrum. So like that's one thing that we're going to be doing is like, as like let's say Don comes up with a color spectrum that he likes even more than our default one. Like you say like, oh, I added double the indigo LEDs and, you know, got rid of the cool blues or something like that. Well, you could then go and, you know, if the spectrum is requested by enough people, it's something that then we could just stock boards with like Acro Garden color spectrum, and you can pick that for your light, and you could put in an Acro Garden schedule that has those color channels already shared with the community in the presets. So
okay,
it's either, you know, you can make these lights as simple to work with or as complicated as you want, and it's totally up to you. So
yes, definitely. I think I'm going to wrap us up with the last question for you. If you put in a few sentences together for us, you please let our audience know why they should choose your products versus other LED brands. Don't ask this one, not me.
Of course.
Yeah, I guess I mean overall, like I said, I'm very mission focused on just producing the best light in the hobby and continually improving and standing behind my products. I mean, really, like the most important thing is like I'm a passionate aquarist. I really care about the lights, and if you ever need service, anything like that, you're talking to myself or my business partner, someone who knows the product incredibly intimately. You're not just talking to a regular customer service person. You're talking to someone who literally takes these lights apart for a living and can tell you what you need, who runs the spectrometers and knows the spectrum intimately and played a role in designing the spectral layouts and all that stuff. So, you know, you're not just talking to a regular customer service person, you're talking to an expert who knows the product. And I think that's really important.
Personal touch, definitely. Yeah, personal touch. Yeah. Jamie, John, anything else before we wrap us up here? Well over the 2-hour mark now, gentlemen.
My only very last minute off topic question is, being a bit of a collecting geek, I think that's an awesome Belemite tile you've got behind you on the wall. Is that what it is?
Oh yeah. That's a fossil I picked up.
He thinks I'm a geek now.
Oh my!
That's from I think it's from Spain, is where they collect a lot of the ammonite fossils. But I saw that one. I just had to have it. I got it at Animal Con. I think it was Animal Con in Orlando. I saw that and I was like, oh my god! And then I figured out how to ship it back. You know, that was the next
looks
process.
to me like it's Belemites, right? Fossilized squid.
Yep, exactly.
Looks proper cool. They're huge. Sorry, I'm just geeking out on that. That's my only
question.
Oh,
no, I love that thing. And then a friend of mine, Bob Winfrey, built that stand, actually, because I had it on like this ugly metal thing. So he...
why isn't there an LED light over it, Logan? I'll leave you with that. I'll leave you with that.
Well, I rent the warehouse. I don't own this particular building, so I don't know if I want to bust holes in the wall quite yet. But you know, maybe one of these days I'll put an outlet behind there.
Cool. Well, Logan, you've been a great guest. Thanks ever so much for coming on. Big shout out to the one and only Logan Vangelis. Thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Tom and Jamie, it's nice to meet you. Dog, it's great to see you.
A little bit technical at times, but clearly these three nerds loved it. Thanks to the 56 odd of you that have tuned in this Friday to join us with Logan. Again, big shout out to Logan, Reef Breeders. Learned a lot more than I did before we came on the show about the products. Definitely something I'm going to be looking at in the future, and hopefully other people around the UK and EU will do also. But yes, thanks to our guest Logan for joining us. Thanks to Dong. Thanks to Jamie. As always, have an amazing weekend, Reefers. We love you all, whatever you're up to, and we will see you all next Friday. Take care for now. Goodbye.
Yep.
Take care.